Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 394 for December 24th, 2014. This year's best moments. Hi there, Leo Laporte, your elf on the shelf, and it's time once again for our year-end edition of Windows Weekly. Grab yourself a giant mug of hot cocoa because we've got a lot of hot Microsoft news with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Goodness, it's been an incredible year for Microsoft. Kind of a life-changing year for Microsoft. We're going to kick things off with pretty much the topic for the first couple of months of 2014. Who would be the new CEO? Let's watch some speculation.
You know, we talked last week about Microsoft. This was 2013 was the banner year for Microsoft. So much stuff, so much amazing stuff. But what is 2014 going to portend?
I think it's going to be another year of insanity.
We know there'll be a new CEO because we've been told that.
We do.
Do you think a new CEO will change the company much, or will they pick somebody that's going to maintain?
You know, whoever comes in has to basically agree with what the plan is now that's in place, I think, because the board, the search committee, they're all kind of backing the way they've reorganized the company into the one Microsoft and all that.
That's going to narrow it down, though, a little bit. I mean, not everybody would necessarily sign on under those conditions.
Right. And, you know, there are all these people speculating maybe Bill and Steve will step down off the board. And if that happens, maybe that will allow for bigger changes. But there's been no indications from anyone I know that that's about to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that's gonna start the year off probably. I'm betting they're gonna name the CEO in January, not next week, obviously, since that's CES timing. But I'd say early in the year.
Soon.
Yep, soon.
And who are our candidates these days? I said probably Satya Nadella and Elop, the insiders, seem to me to be more likely than an outsider.
Alan Mullally is still in the running.
It's like Generalissimo Francisco Franco. It does not go away.
He's not going away.
So he never stepped forward and said no, like the board wanted. The Ford board wanted him to do.
Nope, he never did.
That fuels the rumors.
Yep,
it does. It does.
I didn't say no yet.
It was a crazy. No, and there was a crazy rumor the week of Christmas that a couple of people mentioned to me because I don't know if you guys caught this, but the CEO of Hyundai North America abruptly stepped down and no one knows why. And people were saying, what if they're going to pick this guy?
Hyundai. It's like a Ford, only cheaper.
It's like exactly. I'm like, wait. And the guy who it is, his name is John Krafcik, Krafcik. He actually is an engineer by profession. So, of course, that started some crazy speculation.
No, I was talking the other day. I've been talking about this kind of a lot lately, thinking about the idea of platforms and thinking about the history of Microsoft, which, and I had this discussion with Dvorak, who as usual kind of disagreed, but that the boom of the computer industry in the 80s and 90s was, I think, almost entirely attributable to the fact that Microsoft provided a stable platform developers could write to. It was a known platform. You knew what you were writing for. You knew that they had a huge installed user base. Microsoft preserved legacy compatibility all along for those 20 years. I mean, they really did a good job in that respect. I guess 90s and 2000s maybe would be the right decades for that. And but the world's changed. Microsoft's recognizing that, and it is in fact the cloud that is the new platform, is it not?
It's one of them. I mean, I think mobile devices are.
Yeah, I guess mobile.
Although I guess in many ways most mobile apps are just front ends to online services.
Cloud, yeah. And it started with Amazon Web Services. In fact, I'm reading this.
It really is the Netscape thing. You know, I always go back to this. And I really didn't respect Mark Andreessen too much when Netscape was the thing. And, you know, he was talking about how they were going to reduce Windows to a buggy set of device drivers on which their kind of what we would now call like a cloud OS would run.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that. I think the shock for Microsoft over the past 10 years has been that it's that traditional plan that you were just talking about, where they would respect backwards compatibility and customers would just kind of move along with them, kind of came to a crashing halt. And,
Exactly.
it started with, with the Apple stuff, right? Because here were these new platforms that weren't compatible with anything, and things like that never took off before.
Right.
And, you can kind of argue about why. We could discuss that. But I mean, I think that was the big affront, to Microsoft.
So it became very clear that, there's the enterprise cloud, but there's this larger cloud as a platform for everybody, which Google's promoting with Chromebooks, of course. And I think you nailed it, Paul, when you said that mobile devices are really just a front end to cloud computing. Amazon kind of began this era with Amazon Web Services, Elastic Computing Cloud, S3 storage. Microsoft and Google both are trying to, and actually have parity, I think, now. Microsoft.
It's just funny how this technology, it's weird. It kind of subverts the historic strength of Microsoft because it makes the PC and the server less relevant. That when you can cheaply virtualize a server up in some cloud service rather than in your own expensive data center, that's actually a big benefit to customers.
It's commoditized, right? I mean,
it makes that thing that was Microsoft's kind of bread and butter less viable.
And a lot of companies, HP, Rackspace, Google, they're talking about OpenStack now. These are not running. They're running on open source software.
Well, the thing is, when you run stuff locally, that's when you have the sort of historical backwards compatibility is important.
Right.
When you run it up in a service, switching between platforms is no longer a big deal because you're not doing the heavy lifting anymore.
It's trivial. And it has, in the same way that in the 90s and the 2000s, Microsoft powered an entire economy forward. The cloud has done that dramatically. A startup starts in these shared systems that are cheap.
Leo, Microsoft's slogan at one time, remember, was a computer on every desk in every home, that kind of thing.
Running Windows software, Microsoft software.
Running Windows software. Yeah. But that must have seemed so forward-leaning in the 1980s or whenever they came up with that. That sounds ludicrously old-fashioned today.
Doesn't it?
A computer on a desk in my house? Why would I want that?
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. It is profound how big of a change.
So no wonder Microsoft's struggling a little bit with this.
Well, as it turns out,
they're still making
obviously,
money.
I think this quarter does show that
they're still making money.
They're still making a lot of money, and the way that they're doing it is by, I think, successfully transitioning the businesses that they can from on-prem software to services.
And that's what I was leading up to with this ridiculously circuitous route. What is the report card on that?
I think they're doing great. In that transition. But I think more just to kind of step back a second, Mary Jo and I write about Microsoft, but really we kind of write about Windows in the sense that Windows is the center of everything, It's not anymore. And that's the weirdest transition of all. Because Microsoft can still be very successful without the Windows desktop being very successful. Right. But it's so weird because Windows was at the center of it all for so long. It was the catalyst for everything else that happened there.
Huge change.
So I think we tend to focus on that stuff and maybe over-focus on it because it's been such a constant for 20 years, 20 plus years, But it's changing and it's weird. It's hard, it's a hard transition.
Yep. Do they break out the cloud stuff, Mary Jo? Is that...
They give you some very vague ideas. Like they'll say we doubled licenses sold compared to last quarter, but we don't know what the number sold was last quarter, so we don't really know.
Yeah.
Which makes it tricky.
Yeah.
The one number they did break out, which was interesting, was Office 365 Home Premium sales. They actually are at 3.5 million subscribers for that now, and that is one of their cloud services.
Pretty good.
It is. That's actually very good. It's what that one is Microsoft selling to customers on a subscription basis the right to install Office 2013 on up to 5 PCs or Macs.
That's the one I have. And it's
Yep.
what, $10 a month? What is it? I can't even remember now.
Yeah, it's roughly that. It's $99 a year.
So that's a significant. You're talking some money here.
Right.
Yep.
But they did admit that the one reason that did so well was they started cannibalizing their own non-subscription Office business.
But of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Right. It's not a big surprise.
I don't know if you caught this. I don't know where this popped up, but I guess they also said that the business versions, I guess, were now on a $1.5 billion revenue run rate.
Wow.
And that this is the fastest growing, commercial product in their history now.
That's Office 365, the business ones, right?
Yeah.
Nope, I didn't see that number.
Yeah, 1 in 4. They said 1 in 4 of all business customers, of all of their business customers, have Office 365, and 60% of the Fortune 500 has purchased Office 365 in the past year.
So that's good. That means that this transition to the subscription model is working well. I mean, if you're saying 25% have adopted this, that's for the first year. I think that's good, right?
I think so.
That's very good. That means this new model for software, which is really software as a service practically, I mean, is succeeding. That's got to be good news for Microsoft. So is this kind of a stalking horse for Windows becoming a subscription product? I think it is. Microsoft's always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And they do already in enterprise, I guess.
I mean, yeah, if you talk about cloud, the word cloud means so many things. If you talk about it as a subscription and say, hey, what if we let you buy 5 Windows licenses that you could install on any of your family's PCs if you pay us, however, $99 a year, whatever. That's Office. I mean, that's Windows as a subscription, just like Office, right?
Sure.
They could do that. Why not?
I wish they would.
Or
really,
right,
why?
Or you
Why,
do something.
Why do you want that?
I think this is the time where Windows is kind of hitting a shortfall, and you've got all these 400 million XP users that aren't upgrading anytime soon, and I don't think this would help businesses per se, but just making Windows more easily and cheaply licensable and providing that same benefit to families that they do with Office, I think is just a no-brainer.
Remember, though, that in the Windows, well, I don't remember. I'm not. I shouldn't be telling you. You should be telling me. But
Do tell me.
In the Windows world, I'm just thinking now there's business and there's consumers, but in both cases, I think the sense that you get is you buy the computer with Windows, and you don't upgrade Windows until you buy the next computer.
Yeah.
So what am I paying for with a subscription, and why should I pay anything?
Sure.
It's already I already
you're
bought the
competing
computer.
with devices that get upgrades for free forever.
Right.
Well, or for some period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right.
So
If
how
it's
do you
that kind of a
move from that model?
How do you move from it or to it? Do you mean?
To the subscription model, from the model which I think exists right now, at least in my mind, that I don't buy Windows. I buy a computer with Windows on it, and I don't buy another copy of Windows until I buy the next computer. In fact, I don't even ever buy it. And that's certainly the consumer mindset. Is it also the business mindset?
Yeah.
Except for the
definitely.
giant enterprises where they're buying, volume licenses and all that.
There's another issue, though, I think, in businesses where they don't want to disrupt operations. I mean, one of we ran into this with the Surface stuff that we'll talk about later, where constant updates is a great idea, Constant upgrades that actually work and don't impact the reliability of the system is a much better idea.
Much better, yeah.
And that's the thing, we still, enterprise customers, business customers, these are the guys that would never upgrade until SP1 in the old days and then got burned by service packs and, didn't want to upgrade ever. And that's why we have XP. It's a tough thing to get from here to there.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a business customer and Microsoft says to you, okay, how about if you buy Windows on a subscription? It's almost like software assurance then, right? It's
right.
like you tell us that we'll give you every update and point release that we do in some set period, like 3 years for software assurance, and that guarantees you get everything.
Right.
So that's another way you come at it.
Kind of have that, don't they? I mean, one of the issues that comes up with this XP expiration thing, right, which is like the great story of our age, is who are these 400 million customers? Like, who are these people, that haven't upgraded?
Yeah.
And I've heard from, readers in my comments section and via email, like, why does Microsoft care about these people? They're not good customers. They're still running XP. The thing is, I actually think that most of those customers are, in fact, business customers and are good Microsoft customers, and that they do have access to newer versions of Windows. Not all of them, but some significant percentage through software assurance or volume licensing, and that they have not upgraded because they can't, or they perceive that they can't, because they have these legacy applications or web apps or intranet sites or whatever it is that for whatever reason doesn't work in a modern web browser or a modern version of Windows or whatever, and that they're kind of stuck on XP for the same reason that people have always been stuck on old versions of software. It's just
I want to buy a new piece of hardware. And
I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those guys were, in fact, what we might call good Microsoft customers, in the sense that they are paying for SA, volume licensing, whatever, but they just can't make that move.
In the consumer space, and maybe the consumer space doesn't matter. Okay.
Those guys, screw those guys.
Does the consumer space matter
if you're at home
anymore?
running XP, I mean, come on, seriously?
But that's probably most of them, right?
Listen, you got to come out of your cabin in the woods and realize, the 80s are over. It's time to upgrade.
Yeah. I don't think it's I think it's a mix of those kind of people who just are too cheap, like we've talked about before. And then there's people who really can't move because of peripherals, software applications they built, people who built apps that are dependent on Internet Explorer 6, like all those people. It's like you want to encourage them to move, obviously, so that they aren't going to be infected by any kind of a massive security issue once Microsoft stops updating XP. But I also kind of feel for them. It's like they're stuck, right?
They're literally stuck. I mean, I think that's the important part.
They're literally stuck.
And they're not always running ancient hardware. I mean, I remember back in the Windows 7 days when that was first coming out, one of the big concerns then was XP. And, one of the things they did with Windows 7 was make sure that it ran really well on older hardware. And, there were all these stories about companies buying Windows 7 class PCs and wiping it out and putting Windows XP on it because they needed it for backwards compatibility. Hopefully. I mean, hopefully they weren't just doing it because they didn't want to train people how to use
I like XP. It's a good little operating system.
I like that silver UI that you can put on. It's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do like that, actually. Surface, which is not the opposite of dive. Maybe it is the same. I don't know. More updates. You call it, Paul, the worst month ever for Surface updates.
Well, I mean, it's been so stupid.
There've been a
It's
lot
like
of them. Updates to the updates on the updates.
I feel like a lot of positive things have happened at Microsoft over the past year, And this Surface lack of communication thing is like the whole Sinofsky era all over again.
Yeah.
I just feel bad about it. It was so unnecessary. They really kind of shot themselves in the foot there.
So Mary Jo has wrapped it all up and explained to us all what the hell happened.
I tried. Although today I found out there's some things I have to change in that article yet again.
Oh, man. You just published it yesterday.
I know.
Is it February yet?
No. Yeah. Yeah. So here's one of the reasons this is so complicated. Microsoft is updating 4 different Surfaces, or Surfi, or whatever we call them. Surface Pro 2, Surface Pro, Surface 2, and Surface RT, which they call just the plain old Surface now. And some of these are running Windows 8.1, and some are running Windows 8.0. I can imagine this could get even more complicated when we have Update 1 come out.
Yeah.
So they're updating all these things differently based on which operating system on which hardware you're running. So not everybody gets the same set of updates across all of these devices. Each one of these different configurations gets different updates. So if you look at my list, there's things they updated on the Surface Pro 2 that are different from what they did on the Surface Pro, that are different from what they did on Surface 2. We've gone over a lot of these on previous episodes of Windows Weekly, but the main thing to know about the Surface Pro 2, which I just found out today, is there was one firmware update that went out this month for everybody for Surface Pro 2, whether you got the faulty December firmware update or you didn't. Everybody now supposedly has the same firmware update fix as of January on their machines.
Right on, Daddy.
How confident do you feel about that one?
I don't.
Just curious.
feel
Said that kind of hesitantly, yeah.
I don't know. It seems like something you should be able to say confidently, but
We've heard so many different iterations of this story, right? From at
Yeah.
first, it was like some people were getting one patch and some were getting a different patch, and then some were getting. Some people also are getting things called hardware updates, which I found
Yes.
out today are just driver updates.
That's not hardware. All right.
I know. How disappointing.
Yeah.
I guess you can't really push
I was
the
just
hardware.
staring at it like it's like waiting for toast to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe the hardware will change in front of my
My
eyes.
screen resolution is doubled.
My Surface Pro got thinner.
Thank you, Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
So anyway, the good news is we're almost done with January, so at least the January updates are done. But there should be some more February ones coming.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. The one thing that did not get fixed, by the way, in this month of updates, because I've had a few people ask me about this, was there's a micro SD card issue for the Surface Pro 2. And I believe that none of the updates that anybody got fixed that.
What
So
is the issue?
Something to do with battery life, I believe, or when you have a micro SD card in, somehow your battery drops to 0, I'm thinking.
Wow.
I can't remember exactly, although I bet somebody in the chat room will. But yeah, whatever that micro SD card was, if I could find my article. I wrote so many articles on Surface updates this month, I can't even find all of my articles.
It's so hard to write about. It's like, okay, I thought I covered everything.
But we haven't.
Where's the little search doggy when you need him?
I know.
You look like you're looking for articles. Can I
Where's
help?
Clippy? I know.
I
I want my Clippy.
need my articles. Please, if you have a question for Paul, Mary Jo, Daniel Rubino for Windows Phone Central, raise your hand and we'll send you the microphone. Say your name and who you work for or where you're from or anything that would help us understand why you're here.
I'm Jeffrey Harmon. I have my own software company doing Windows 8 and Windows Phone apps as well as in business software.
Awesome.
And during the day, I also do database development and web development. So I'm wondering with the rapid release of new versions of Windows, how is that going to affect, I know, small devices are now free, but they're still charging for the larger devices. How is that going to affect them charging for a new version? Because, in
Right.
free software, versions don't matter too much, but in paid software, 8s you pay for, updates are free. When 9 comes out, you pay for it. If they're releasing everything in,
Yep.
6-month cadences, it's hard to really have that point where someone that just bought a brand new one, it's harder to charge for that big gap because there's no more big gaps anymore.
I sort of talked with them vaguely about that kind of thing this week, and they don't have a direct answer yet. I think this is still kind of up in the air, but they're obviously aware of that.
Yeah, even with Windows Phone, right? They can't.
Yeah.
Windows Phone 9, they would have to. There are a lot of legal complications that go.
Is there at some point where they imagine? Is there going to be a point where they ever charge for a Windows Phone update? Right, which is kind of an interesting
Right.
question.
Right.
Well,
So
now
Windows Phone
Windows
9
Phone's
comes
free,
out.
so for
Well, does it
phones,
require like a dual core processor or a quad core processor? I mean, maybe there'll be some dividing line. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that. Well, I can't answer.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean,
no. I don't think we know yet.
I think it's up in the air. Is the
And
way to
we
say
don't
it.
know what
But
the
they're aware of it. It's not like that. You wouldn't ask if you asked Microsoft this question, which I actually kind of did. There's no, oh yeah, this is how we're doing it. I mean, I think there's a. They're looking at how Office 365 has been accepted by consumers. Obviously, it's not a big leap to think about a subscription version of Windows where that replaces that. You pay for X versions. Or
And
whatever.
Apple charges for their updates, and people.
That's true.
Still
People
pay.
do it. Yeah.
And maybe they'll go to the
A cheaper
think Windows
yearly.
365 by the
Right.
time of Windows
Right.
9 even maybe.
Yep,
I
that
don't
wouldn't
know.
surprise me in
Right.
the slightest.
Yeah.
And they'll give you, if you think about how Office 365 works, kind of liberal licensing, which I think is really the future.
Yep.
The way Windows works now, you buy a copy of Windows, it's tied to that PC. That's so antiquated.
Yeah. Office 365 is really kind of awesome. I don't know,
yeah,
I really like the model they did. For
I
that.
do too.
Yeah.
But I also run into people who say, I don't get it. Why would I want to pay for this thing? Why would I want to pay for it
Because
every
they don't
year?
have 5 devices like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fair. Leo, what are you doing?
Nothing.
And one correction on Roslyn. even though it's compiler as a service, it's actually a local service. It's not anything cloud-based.
Oh, okay.
It just means that a developer can actually call into the compiler and get information about the code. That's what they're referring to for that. Normally, it's compiles a black box, you put code in, binary comes out.
Gotcha.
Great,
Gotcha.
thanks.
And actually, the new version of C# is Roslyn. There's no more non-Roslyn.
Yeah, and actually, there
C#
were
6 is Roslyn.
Right.
is Roslyn and is
and
open
VB.
source, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's open source.
Yeah. I'd love to see C# make the leap and become the cross-platform language. It's so clean.
That's what's nice for Xamarin. Because
Yeah.
it means the compiler you use on the internet is the same on
Yeah.
Pass the microphone around. Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment. There actually were 2 sessions on TypeScript.
There were.
Oh, there were.
Anders gave one an update on it, and then right after that, there was a session on developing a large-scale application using TypeScript.
Okay.
Cool.
Did you
So-
go to the Anders TypeScript
Huh?
session? Did you go to it?
I did not, but
Yeah.
it's on the schedule.
I actually met Anders at the show for the first time, and Leo often references the Delphi Super Bible.
Yes.
And so I was able to tell him that I go back a long time with his stuff. That I was a Turbo Pascal guy, Object Pascal, Delphi.
Was he at Borland?
Yeah, he did all this stuff. And so it's kind of interesting if you follow the progression. C# is in many ways the kind of C-based successor to Object Pascal, in some ways.
He's a very bright guy, and
yeah,
he's
a
very
genius.
well spoken.
And he's a really nice guy. Yeah. So that was kind of neat.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Paul, Mary Jo, and Daniel? And say who you are and what brings you to build.
And we know that Australia isn't a third world country. I was a joke.
Don't be mad.
Hi guys, would you believe my name's Mark as well from Australia?
Oh,
So
thanks.
2 Marks there.
Oh, you are from Australia? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yikes. You can always tell.
Are they, Mary Jo, are they Coopers? Are they Coopers beers there?
Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice.
Really?
Yeah, he's giving you good ones. I'm just curious, with all these changes lately at Microsoft, how much of that do you think is Satya's vision and how much is it the board's vision is executing?
Right.
That's a
The
great
second
question.
bit was, how long do you think ELOP will stick around?
Yep. And the other part to your question is how much of it was Steve Ballmer, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I talked to Soma Sagar, who runs the developer division, about the decision to do .NET as open source this week. And, I saw so many people tweeting and saying, see, that's Satya.
That
It wasn't.
so
It was Ballmer.
short-sighted. Yeah.
And Soma told me Ballmer is the one who came up with that plan,
Yeah.
and Satya was the one who pulled the trigger on it, but it was Ballmer.
It's like the president, the new president gets elected, and the economy suddenly
recovers.
does great,
And
and,
that was-
and they take credit for it. But
That was 12 months.
The factors
Right.
that contributed to that occurred previously.
They did.
It's a little more nuanced.
Even Office on iPad, right? Like so many people said, oh, well, Steve
No, this
Ballmer
never
never
would've
would have let
happened.
that
Yeah, yeah,
happen.
They
He
coded
was
in
the
6
one
days.
who made it happen first before Windows.
The other thing to think
Yeah.
of is, when you asked about the board versus Satya, is that how you said it? I mean, the fact that Satya was picked by the board, essentially, by that special team part of the board, tells you that these guys are all in line.
Yeah.
And so it almost doesn't, there's almost no delineation between was it their idea, his idea, that kind of thing, because they're kind of on the same page, we would have to imagine.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, there's
They're
some
not gonna
dissent
pick-
in the board.
Of course, there will always
Right.
be, but they're not going to pick the guy that
No.
completely disagrees with everything they
Right,
want
the
to
guy
do.
who wants to sell Bing,
Yeah.
sell Xbox.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's-
let's get him.
Tony Bates is gone for a reason.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Mark.
Yeah.
Moving on. Anybody else? Question for Paul, Mary
I
Jo?
can't believe he's from Australia. That's hilarious.
That was
You have a gift.
Hi.
Uh-oh. Rolling.
Hi, everyone.
Is Liz over
George
there?
Roberts from
Say your name again?
George Roberts from Chicago.
Hi, George.
Sir Twist on Twitter.
Sir Twist.
Sir Twist, are you a developer?
I am. Windows Phone.
I'm so sorry.
ASP.NET.
Go on.
I'm going to ask sort of an opinion question here, but Windows Phone has been making a lot of gains everywhere else but the U.S.
Yeah.
So, what does Microsoft need to do to get Windows Phone above 10% in the U.S.?
Well, they need to hire me and then give me a lot of money. No, if I knew that answer, I would. I mean, I don't think anyone knows. It's the problem in the U.S. is those 2-year contracts lock people in.
The other thing, isn't it interesting that in the United States, not necessarily uniquely in the world, but one of the few countries in the world where the iPhone has huge market share.
Right.
When you look at the overall worldwide picture, it's 80%, 17 or 14%, whatever, and then the rest is Windows Phone mostly. In the United States, iPhone is like 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this, what?
Yeah.
iPhone in US
Is the same.
is the same as
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the sub.
Europe it costs like 2 times as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the moves in the United States to get rid of the subsidized smartphones, which is occurring right now, and a lot of other things that are going on. T-Mobile, which is a very minority position in the United States, is changing policies for international calling, international
and
data.
growing as a result.
Of course.
Yeah.
These are the types of things that trigger change, and so we'll see. But the United States is hard because this market is so skewed toward Apple.
Yeah.
One of the best things about coming to San Francisco for Build is you walk around and everyone has Windows Phone.
Yeah, and I've actually noticed over the last 2 years that's actually dramatically changed. I remember Build 2-3 years ago, Windows Phone was actually you didn't see it
You
very
didn't see
much.
it.
I see it all.
I got to commend Microsoft for sticking with it because I think 8.1 really is starting to look like a very competitive platform in almost every respect. The only respect you could say it's lagging is ecosystem. I won't even say apps. I'll just say ecosystem. And of course, when you come into a market like the U.S. where there's an entrenched ecosystem of iPhone and then secondarily Android, that is a speed bump.
Yeah.
Maybe less of a speed bump in other countries where Nokia is a better known brand and better beloved.
You remember that.
That's an issue right there too. Is Nokia means really nothing in the U.S., which a lot of people don't understand. When
It
Nokia
used
was,
to, but not anymore.
Well, even still with Symbian, I never saw Symbian. I never touched it. So Nokia doesn't have that reputation here. Where like in other countries, just the name Nokia, people
it
will
means smartphone.
Oh yeah. So there's that tide that they have to like really fight against.
And I would guess that you don't have people who have highly invested in Android or Apple ecosystems, so there's less of a disincentive to move to Windows Phone. Maybe also they're buying their first smartphone more than we would be, and as a result, they're less worried about whether Foursquare's on it or not.
Tell me if you remember this conversation, because I don't remember what the context was, but somebody said that when you look at Windows Phone usage in the United States, it's largely centered in the middle of the country.
Oh, really?
The kind of flyover type states, right? Because in those markets, they're not necessarily super interested in the trendy, bright white iPhone thing. You can buy a $99 phone or $69 phone and get it off contract, and it's kind of interesting. I sort of like that aspect to it in a way, because I feel like that is the computing for the rest of us kind of thing.
It's a hipster phone.
Yeah, it kind of is, which is weird, right?
I guess that peer pressure is influential in this, or what your friends and family, what looks cool.
But the
Leon
retail
Zaman in the chat room says in the Netherlands people actually buy because it's Nokia.
Because it's Nokia, right?
That's a big thing. That's why everybody's worried about the acquisition, like what's going to happen.
I was always fascinated by Nokia, and when they picked up Windows Phone, I was really excited by that because it's almost. It has kind of an interesting quality to it. It's foreign and it's unknown, and it's different. Yeah. And, Nokia has not been a factor in the United States for a long time.
I think you watch. I think that there is a growing awareness, partly because of Nokia's ad campaigns, and they've been very good, of Windows Phone. And I think Windows 8 Phone 8.1 is going to be a tipping point, I predict.
They got to figure out the retail experience, though, right?
It's gotten better.
It's better, but there's still
better.
like you could still talk to like a Verizon employee, and they'll be like, "Yeah, but this doesn't have Instagram on it."
Right.
And so there's the reality, and then there's the delay, and they're still fighting that.
What major apps are going to be missing when 8.1 comes out? Not Instagram.
We're still waiting on Flipboard. Yeah. And someone asked about that.
I don't think Flipboard's that important. How about Sonos? That would be a deal breaker.
Sonos,
they're a third-party app.
But there's a really good third-party app called Phonos, and Sonos actually did a survey recently with their own customers asking,
should we?
Yeah, not only do you want a Windows Phone app, but what do you want in it?
Right.
That would make.
I'll tell you, here's what I want in it. I want what's in the iPhone app.
Yeah.
So stop asking and just make it.
Well, that's where Mark Whitten went to work as Sonos, right? So,
right.
Now
I truly think this is going to be a tipping point. I think you're going to see a year from now we'll look back and say, boy, that really was the watershed event.
It's going to be Cortana.
And I say that
I think that's going to be
as an outsider. Cortana.
It'll work into the pop culture.
As an outsider who uses Android, I was with the iPhone since 2007. This is the first time I'm looking at it going, that's reached parity.
Did you say you were an iPhone user since 2007?
Yeah.
The year that the iPhone came out?
With no apps?
Man, I got in line to buy that iPhone. With no apps, but no one else had apps either. Well, we are here in the midst of an expocalypse. How do you call? What do you call this? Windows XP.
Apocalypse, I guess.
XP and I've got it here, is dead.
Yep. Those look like the freebie, the cheapo Microsoft Store ones.
Yeah, they are.
Campus.
Wow, you nailed it. How did you know? It has that big.
Because I bought a lot of software there, Leo.
That big sticker says
the sticker they get on. Yeah.
Microsoft company store purchase not to be sold. Purchased by employee number, which is conspicuously blank.
Yep.
We've blanked it out for purposes of exposition. See there. So, gosh, it says right on the box, this is the best version of Windows ever, and.
You know what it also says on the box is if you have a PC with Windows 95 on it, you could use this, and that is crazy.
Yeah, you couldn't because it was such a
that
pig.
Could have been good advice even in 2000.
The smartest Windows ever. Smart capabilities that put you in charge. Make your experience your own. That's for the home version.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Days, Leo.
Has the world come to an end?
Leo, when they launched Windows XP, there was a gateway cow in Times Square in New York City.
Wow,
that's a
you have
fact.
a good memory. Yeah,
that's a fact.
That. Yep.
You actually have a lovely requiem for Windows XP, but you have to read it backwards.
Well, the ones at the bottom are the first ones I posted.
That's what I'm saying. You have to scroll up. In fact, you have some of the things we were just talking about. Windows XP, your computer will be faster, more reliable. Starts faster than any previous version. Also runs your programs more quickly and reliably, unless you're using a Windows 95.
It was amazing.
Was it?
No. No, it was fine.
With Windows XP, DOS is gone for good. Well, except that setup is in DOS. But other than that...
By the way, a million people wrote me to tell me, that's not really DOS, right?
Yeah, whatever.
To which I said,
up.
You could just relax.
Shut up. It's Twitter.
Settle down.
Steve Ballmer in an internal email to Microsoft employees, July 2001, I want everyone to upgrade to Windows XP Release Candidate 1 today.
And by the way, that email included the instructions for how it was going to happen, and it involved you walk by the receptionist in whatever building you work in, and they will hand you a disk, and then you will install it on your computer.
Wow.
And if you need help, here's how you get support from the local IT stuff. Like they actually made everyone upgrade.
They were serious.
Yeah.
Wow. Here's a picture of the long and winding road. Steve Guggenheimer, July 2001. From the Windows perspective, this will be an open bar.
Yeah, we need more open bars.
Plug in. What is that picture of? That's very blurry.
It was a sidebar, and it was actually like an MSN kind of thing, but this was like an idea for a future version of Windows, like Longhorn.
Right. They never really gave up the idea of those green hills.
Oh, they love the road. They love the road. The road goes ever on.
Taken. The road goes ever on. Here's another one. Imagine the future as a user being able to access services and local capabilities seamlessly.
Yep.
Was that really a brilliant writing in 2001? Was that like really a crystal ball?
Yeah. I mean, today we just do it without thinking about it.
Yeah. In fact, Microsoft says they're a services company.
Sure.
Yeah. Early days of the cloud.
Windows XP had a way that you could sign in to your .NET Passport, which was what became Microsoft account. And now that's integrated right into the OS. It only took them, 15 years. So it's weird, I mean, how XP was the beginning of a lot of different stuff.
Quote Jim Alchin on a couple of things. Hiding features from consumers, not a good thing, not good for the industry. The industry needs Windows XP. It's designed for choice. And then, anyway, RIP Windows XP, writes Paul Thurrott yesterday. XP. Actually, was it midnight tonight, or last night, that the expiration was? Midnight California, or West, I guess, Seattle time.
Yeah, I went down to my bunker last night just in case the planet exploded.
The irony of this all is that, yes, there was a massive exploit that affected almost every user of computers in the world, and it was on open source software, not...
By the way, seriously, thank you for taking the pressure off open source, because, it's like... it's like you get into like a drunk driving kind of a problem the night that Gary Busey does the same thing, and now no one cares about you anymore. All they care about is Gary Busey. It's so weird that happened right then. Nice.
So I didn't know this, but thanks to our chatters, the picture, the Bliss wallpaper, the green hill, wallpaper is Napa. It's right around the corner from here. That's what I see when I go out my door every single day.
The guy that took that photo threatened to sue me one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, sheesh.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Why? Charles O'Rear?
Because I took a picture. I'm sorry, I didn't take a picture. I reprinted a photo of him standing in front of that photo.
Oh, awesome.
And because I was writing about the background of it, of the picture. This was years ago. And he told me that was owned by whatever publication it was in and that I couldn't do that. And I told him, I don't know if you understand how
fair
use works in the United States, but of course I can do that.
Fair use.
So I told him he was welcome to try to sue me.
He was a National Geographic photographer.
Yeah. Great photographer. Apparently he's a little bit of a,
cranky.
Kind of a jerk.
A little cranky. This is in Carneros, for those who are familiar with the area. I know exactly where this is. We go there all the time. There's the Carneros Inn is right by there.
So now that thing is covered in vines.
Yeah, it is. I bet you could not find that now. He took the picture.
Actually, there's a picture of it now. It looks the same. It just has, the
has vines on it.
The vine stands. Yeah.
Yeah. I would guess to be wine or grapes. Oh, look at this! Did you actually drive over there? Look at this! Look at this! Alex Gumpel drove over, and he saw it, and he took a picture. This is what it looks like just a few weeks ago. And you're exactly right. It's got grapevines on it. Not quite the rich cloud.
Right.
Laden sky, but
nice try, Alex.
It's that hill. You can see the mountain in the distance and all of that. Yeah. Wow.
I was very tempted to go there last night and watch the sunset.
He said he wanted to go there and watch the sunset last night.
Go with me and I was tired, so.
Alex's idea of a romantic evening is somewhat
He's
off.
a romantic, but it's a weird kind of romance there.
Yeah.
Wow. That's neat, Alex. I'm glad you have that picture.
Cool.
That is. It's nice.
It's right off of 12. I know exactly where it is. Yeah. We drive there all the time. It's so funny.
By the way, over the years, this would happen at speaking engagements, tech eds, and things like that. I had been approached many, many times by people who claimed to know exactly where that was. It was in Ireland. It was in New Zealand.
Right.
China.
Mm-hmm. You've seen one Green Hill, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is covered with vines. But that's pretty much all of Napa. Because that is great grape growing area, baby. That's Pinot. That's your Pinot right there. So no word at all about any issues. I guess it's a little early. Yeah. Or is it? I had in my mind, in my imagination, I might have even said this out loud, the idea that there were hackers just poised, just waiting with their fingers on the figurative button to launch these exploits into the wild. Mm-hmm. They've been saving them up, and they just thought, well, the best time to do this would be the day after Microsoft stops releasing patches, because now nobody's going to fix it.
Hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened, oddly enough.
That we know of.
It does, even a 0 day takes a little while. It's not really 0 days. It's a few days.
This is more like going after the zeros that are still running Windows XP.
How many people is that?
Up to 450 million of them,
Jeez.
right? If there are 1.5 billion Windows users, which is what Microsoft says, and you look at the net market share data for usage, about 450 million.
Wow. I noticed nobody doing a Twitter reverse tribute to Clippy in Office 2003.
I saw a couple of Clippy ones somewhere.
Oh, did you? Okay. Good.
And IE6 also end of life, end of support.
Let's not forget that Windows XP had the Clippy type dog, right? The search dog.
I hate the search dog.
I hate it so much. And I remember, ranting about this at the time because you could turn it off. It was one of the first things I did when I installed XP. I hated seeing that thing.
Hate the search
But as part of disabling it, they animated the dog walking away and then looking back over his shoulder at you, as if to make you feel bad that you just turned it off. Isn't
that awful?
Yeah.
He sighs deeply, and then his ears and tail hang. And
I disappointed the digital dog in XP.
Aww.
By the way, that was on by default in Windows XP Professional, the version that went out to businesses. Yes.
What?
Oh, it was.
Yes.
It was on everything. It was on everything.
It was on everywhere. Yep.
We had to make that dog unhappy.
Remember in the beginning, they were going to have weird little differences between Home and Pro. Sorry.
Sorry, Paul. Was that the same dog in Microsoft Bob? Or
not the same dog. Remember
Basically,
that dog?
yeah. It looked very similar.
Same
Yeah.
dog. Yeah.
I decided to wear a black armband.
Nice.
Nice. It looks like one of those things you see around sushi.
like a croupier.
Like your arm is like a piece of uni or something.
It is actually seaweed.
Leo is
Very
like a
good.
battleship uni, like a battleship sushi.
Just slice it here and here. It's going to be tasty and delicious. Did Bill Gates' wife Melinda was the product manager for Bob?
Right. So now you know how people are rewarded when they do something great.
You get to marry the boss. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Look at that. So
it was the only way they could get her off of Microsoft products, you know. The person responsible for Bob must never do anything again.
Take her away. Take her to Carneros for the weekend. So, all right. Well, it's I think interesting to note that Paul and I started doing this show in the XP era.
I know. Arguably, we've been in the XP era the whole time, Leo. I mean,
for 500 million people.
I wonder when Windows 7 surpassed XP usage. It probably wasn't. I mean, XP was. Windows 7 was only really in the market for 3 years, so it probably wasn't that long ago. But it's interesting what it took, for that to happen.
I'm sorry,
I have no feeling in my left arm.
I'm losing blood flow.
The answer to your question, 2011, according to Bing.
2011, yeah. Very late.
That's how long. Because Vista, you can write off.
Passes XP.
Yeah.
That's still only a couple of years. I mean, Windows 7 probably came out, in 2009. So it only took a couple of years. But that's how long XP was number one. I mean, it's amazing. Vista never did it.
Yeah, we have to remember XP was really two operating systems that were both called XP, right? XP Service Pack 2 really should have been called a different operating system because it was, but they called it XP anyway.
They would have, Service Pack 2 was sort of necessitated by the trustworthy computing stuff and Microsoft halted development and all that kind of stuff. And I think had it not been for that, they would have called that something else, and it would have been a new version. Still a long time. I mean,
pretty amazing.
Still, it's probably 11 years since XP SP2.
Very, very amazing. What an interesting, what a long, strange trip it's been.
Windows XP, we hardly knew ye. Well, this was the year Windows XP died. It was also the year that, for the first time ever, Microsoft released a new version of Office, not for Windows first, but for the iPad. Let's take a look.
Office for iPad was just updated. It's only been out, a week or two, and already updates. And
By
I
the way,
expect
the
more,
last
and that's
time-
great.
Right. Office Mobile for Windows Phone, never updated.
Yeah.
You can't, because it's part of the OS.
Right.
Right.
It's
That's
a disadvantage. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Speaking of Office
But
for
maybe
iPad,
that's going to change, right? That was kind of the hint
It's
at
just
Build,
a hope.
I
I'm just
thought.
expressing a hope. I mean, yes. I mean, certainly things are moving in the right direction. They got the same team is doing them all now. I do think it's interesting that all the other parts of Microsoft are updating things pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll see.
Office for the iPad. A few more tidbits.
Yeah, so this was kind of cool. The Office for iPad engineering team took to Reddit to do an AMA this week, which was very uncharacteristic also of the Office team. And they talked about a few things that people found surprising. Now, the one that everybody wrote about that wasn't actually surprising was...
I see some smiles on Paul's side.
I leaned on my keyboard and it flipped up in the air and split into two pieces.
How did we miss that? How did we miss that?
No, we didn't get to see that on...
I have the keyboard that... I'm sorry to interrupt. It has a keyboard that magnetically connects to itself. So after it landed back on the desk, it actually slapped back into shape. So it actually separated and then, reattached.
Yeah.
So it was a magic trick.
It was.
I'll just not touch the keyboard while you talk.
Don't touch that keyboard.
Hands off, Thurrott.
Yeah, so the thing everybody wrote about from this Reddit was, guess what? Guess who approved the iPad version of Office coming out first? It was Steve Ballmer, not Satya Nadella, which we've been telling everybody.
That's cool.
We've been telling everybody on this podcast that for a while. What else did they cover? They said they did not use Xamarin to build the app, which some people thought they had, that it was actually a native app.
I like this one. Did your work on the iPad version delay Mac Office? They said no, but they also said they can't tell us when that's coming.
Code sharing, though, right? Which I think is maybe the big news from
Code
this.
sharing.
That these things are co-developed.
Right. So Office for iPad and Office for Mac are being developed from the same core.
That's what takes a
now.
while, by the way, is that you
It does.
what you do is you back off, you start from scratch, and you write the tools that are going to let you do that, and the libraries and all of that stuff, and that's a year. Then you can get to work on the actual app. So that explains a lot.
Yeah, it does actually. It explains why we haven't got a new Office for Mac yet, and why we haven't seen Office for iPad till now. That does explain a lot. They got asked about when are you going to add printing. They said, yeah, we know it. We need to. It's coming in its due course. That's all they would say on that. Office for Android tablets. Yep, that's coming too. Yeah, they just kind of said, yeah, we're going to do a lot of updates, and we're going to listen to what you guys want, and we're going to put that into the update. A few people asked, will there be any chance that we could get a version of Office for iPad that has more functionality but does not require Office 365? The answer, no, of course. Yeah. So yeah, it was worthwhile. It was a good Reddit. I thought they did a good job.
And we saw a picture of what looked like an Apple store, but in fact is the lab.
Yeah, that's cool.
Where they have the iPads. Look at that.
Yep.
That's a lot of iPads.
It is. On Microsoft campus. Who knew, right?
Yeah. That's pretty cool. It looks like the Apple store. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I love Ask Me Anythings. People, for some reason, they're just more candid. They know they can't be, too cagey on those things. They'll get just ripped apart.
Oh, they get torn apart. Yeah, they'll get torn apart. Yeah.
So it's great. It's just great. I love it when they do those. And that's their second one, I'm told. They did one earlier.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
The Office iPad team did,
I think so. Yeah. Let me look back here. They did. Ian says they did one in July.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the OneNote team. Sorry.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Nope, that's all right. It's probably still the related team though, because it seems like everybody who's working on Office for Mac or Office for iPad are together.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I love those. Reddit. We're developing a show, a Reddit show.
Oh, really? Wow.
We're going to call it Reddit Nation. We'll sit there, we'll drink beers, and we'll read stories from Reddit. It'll be great.
Nice.
No, we are actually working on one because I just feel like Reddit is so cool.
Yeah.
We've had Alexis Ohanian, one of the founders, on twice. We've had the other guy on once, and I just feel a real kinship with them. And now that I don't have to protect Dig anymore, I can go all in on Reddit. What are you having? A nice iced tea there?
It's a kale smoothie.
Yep. I'm speechless. It finally happened.
We're speechless.
And it's in my glass that says, beer is my friend.
That just got like two completely blank stares. I got nothing. You want to start the show?
Let's start with Satya Nadella because he gave an interview. Man, that Kara and Walt, they keep getting the big interviews. It used to be, of course, All Things D. Walt Mossberg, Kara Swisher went independent last year. They called it recode.net, and now they have an event called Code, which has nothing to do with coding. So,
right.
Yeah, they're really
got a few people confused.
really on the ball there. Those two.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the issue. If you ever tried to come up with a new URL trademark, it's impossible now.
So hard, yeah.
Because you have to get the not just the trademark in your country, but it has to be a global. Well, look at Microsoft's problems with SkyDrive and OneNote and whatever. I don't know. So Satya Nadella on stage, just as Bill used to do with Walt and Kara. And you have parsed in great, obsessive detail.
You don't have a lot going on, Leo.
You watched with bated breath.
Pretty much.
Did you go to Code? Did you go to Code? No.
No, and it made it a little tricky to keep up with this because they didn't stream it. So I don't know what Paul was doing. I had like 3 or 4 live blogs open trying to watch what everybody was saying as he was talking, and
they didn't all agree at all points.
Have they put out a video yet?
Live
of
blogging
this?
is the worst.
No, I know.
No video yet.
So really, this is all secondhand from the people who were.
Well, I didn't write anything up until they published their explanation of what was said. Now, I know from past All Things D conferences that their version of what the guy said is probably also inaccurate, but I felt like they're the source and,
yeah,
maybe the best source, at least for the moment.
You need something like Mechanical Turk, where you just take 4 different descriptions of what Nadella said, and then you average them
dump
out.
it down, and you realize he didn't say anything.
He didn't say anything.
That's amazing.
And yet, I mean, this is his baptism by fire. He's only been CEO for a few months. He's already
a cool customer, though. Don't you think he could just take it?
I think he's pretty impressive. Well, so tell me, what do you think?
I thought so too. Although I saw some write-ups today saying, "Oh, he did a terrible job. He was evasive." Hey, that's your job as a CEO to be evasive on these kind of things.
CEO interviews are the worst interviews in the world.
Right.
I don't do them.
I'm not even sure I agree that he was evasive, to be honest. I mean, there was. We'll get to this, but there was one point where he basically said no comment. But that was a no comment that spoke volumes. I mean, about the truth. I didn't think he was evasive really at all.
Yeah.
The question was whether he was on board on the Nokia purchase.
Right.
Yep.
What did that? First of all, we don't know the literal question and the literal.
I think the literal question was, "Are you on board?" But no, before, as it was happening, were you on board with the Nokia purchase?
Were you consulted? Is that what that means?
No. Did you agree that Microsoft should buy Nokia?
Of it.
And he said no comment. Which you're right. That's virtually no.
It is.
An evasive CEO would say, absolutely, of course.
Of course. Of course. And Steve Ballmer would have said that, just as the prototypical CEO.
No comment is like saying, well, how do you like my new bride? Well, no comment.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, you don't abstain, right? I mean, there were reports that he was not in favor, and so there was some interest as he became CEO, whether he would do something different or whether, things would fall apart and all that.
It's a done deal,
obviously he's
but
changed his tune.
I guess he could starve them, take the oxygen out of, them.
You go to war with the army you have, Leo.
Yeah, yeah.
And Bloomberg, who is the one I think who reported he wasn't on board with it initially, said he eventually did change his mind and then became in favor of it. But
and by Bloomberg,
I think that's why he didn't want to get into it, right? Because that would bring up a lot of old, dirty laundry.
Oh, there's nothing worse than old, dirty laundry.
Well, obviously, they've gone to great lengths to show Satya Nadella and Stephen Elop having a great relationship. That was the beautiful Christmas card mountaintop photo that they did together.
That was the funniest.
It was
so
which we'll be making fun of for years to come.
So weird. Yeah.
It's just the weirdest bromance. But, there was the Surface Pro 3 event last week where they were both there. And, it seems to me that they're trying to cultivate a relationship.
Yeah, and not wanting Nokia doesn't mean you don't want Elop.
They're staying together for the kids, Leo.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
It may mean, and I think it's a reasonable thing to say, wait a minute, hold on there. Hold on there, Paulie. So let's go through it bit by bit. He said, at the end of the day, we're a software company. That's really, for sure, what Microsoft always has been, but the hardware is this new thing, the devices.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe it says we're a devices and services company.
How did you put it in your post?
Yeah, I said, it's the second time, or maybe there's been even more times that he said this. And what's interesting is he's the CEO of the devices and services company saying, hey, we're a software company at the end of the day, right? And I think it's really telling. And I also think it's really smart on his part because his strategy is let's play to our strengths.
Right.
And what's their strength? Being a software company.
Yeah.
It's not being a device.
It's just like Acer's strategy when you think about it. At the Acer event we went to recently, the guy said, if you've got a kid who comes home and they have all A's and then 2 C's, I mean, what do you focus on? And I think what he was trying to say was, you focus on that's like the tiger parent thing. You focus on the A's, and I was like, oh no.
I think the tiger mom focuses on the C's.
Okay, because I was saying as a parent, I would focus on the C's.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
How can we get better?
It seems like the A's are taking care of themselves.
Right.
But this is a business, not a parent, a child. So it's a little different.
Yeah. Well, you may be in public, you cheerlead for the A's, but in private you might be kicking some butt around the C division.
Yeah. Or you.
Yeah,
Or you
I
find
mean, right.
ways,
I don't want to
right.
spend too
or
much
you
time on
find
this
ways
analogy,
to
but
take the C and make it into something that looks like an A, which is what I think he's trying to do.
Right.
He's saying,
Like a
"Hey,
B
we're a
plus.
software company, right? But we're going to sell hardware devices to help us sell more software." That's kind of the spin on this.
And you'll recall from when he became CEO that the very first thing he did was send out this letter where the word software suddenly appeared everywhere.
Software.
Yeah.
And this is a word we hadn't heard out of Microsoft in a year and a half or so. And so I remember at the time we thought that was very, that was quite notable.
If you could pick one leitmotif to his reign as CEO, it would be software. This keeps coming up, right? In his his first all hands, he said basically the same thing.
Bill Gates, who is also part of this little chat, is the author of the Notion magic of software. Bill Gates loves software, obviously, and it's perhaps notable and not coincidental that Gates is a close confidant of his, and they're working together, and maybe that has something to do with the software focus. Maybe that was Gates's influence.
Well, for a software company, I guess he's decided not to sell Xbox, so there's still some hardware in there.
That was
Bing.
good.
Or Bing. That was the ELOC plan.
Yeah, the Xbox comment was good because we talked about it on one of our episodes where Gates kind of gave this comment. I think it was on CNBC or Fox that made it sound like maybe that was in play. It was a little iffy. So he just said outright, we have no intent to do anything different on Xbox than we're doing today. Boom. That's it.
Right.
Did he say anything about buying the Clippers, though? That's what people really want.
No, that's the other CEO, Leo.
Wrong CEO.
That was a weird story, by the way. All right.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me not to go on that tangent.
Nope.
But
that Ballmer would buy a team.
yeah,
What
I
else
can
has he
picture
got
that.
to do?
And bringing them to Seattle because Seattle doesn't have a basketball team anymore. And let's face it, LA doesn't exactly need to.
What's the first thing Paul Allen did when he found out he wasn't dying of Hodgkin's disease? He bought the Trailblazers and the Seahawks.
Yep.
It's if you got the money, owning a team, it's kind of the thing.
Sure.
Plus, he's really into basketball, and he's retired now,
tall.
quote unquote. He's tall.
I mean, once you
hang with
bought
the
your own
players.
island and a boat that is as big as an island, I think the sports team is probably
Plus,
right
That's
there.
Larry Ellison.
he won't have a hard time memorizing what kinds of shoes they're wearing, which is always handy.
Right.
All right. Surface Pro 3. Who wants to start?
Mary Jo should
Let's
start
start with
there,
Mary
buddy.
Jo. Ladies first.
Yeah.
So how has it been for you?
I've been liking the device quite a bit. People have asked me very often on Twitter, so you just bought an Acer Aspire S7. You paid a lot of money for an Ultrabook. You sad? Are you mad you didn't wait for this? And my answer is no. I still prefer the Acer because of how I work. And I'm sure people who aren't journalists are sick of hearing this, but I put my PC on my lap a lot, and this Surface does not work that way for me. It falls off the edge of my
It's
knee.
supposed to. That's the irony of it. Acer never made that claim, but
Yeah.
Panos Panay did.
Yep. And I think this keyboard on the new Surface Pro 3 is excellent. I think they made a lot of really great improvements to it and stabilized it, made it easier to type on. But there's nothing like a dedicated keyboard attached in a clamshell device. And I type all day, so the keyboard matters a lot to me. And I know not everybody has that requirement. Most information workers don't. They don't sit there and type for 10 hours a day. But if you do, it's a lot easier to type on a real keyboard than on this keyboard.
Now, the S7 keyboard's not the greatest keyboard in the world.
It's not the greatest, but it's pretty good.
But it's adequate. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty
And by the way,
darn good.
just to be clear, Mary Jo, you work on your Ultrabook in your home office. You
I do.
are not
switch
attached to a
sometimes.
bigger screen.
No, I switch out back and forth. Like when I'm doing the show here, I'm on my Dell Optiplex Windows 7 big screen device. But sometimes when I just want to switch out and go to a different part of my little mini office here, I'll set up my Ultrabook on the counter and work there, just for a change of scenery. You know, a few feet can make a big difference. So the thing I have,
And by the way, that's
surprisingly-
all you have room for in your office.
That is pretty much.
A few feet, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not kidding when I say that. The thing I've been surprised that I like the most about this device, and I haven't told Paul this yet, but I love the pen.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And
use it with OneNote? Is that the chief way you use it? Or?
well, I'm trying to learn OneNote. I know I'm going to be ridiculed by all the OneNote fanatics out there saying you don't need to learn it. You just start typing into it. It's not. It's not intuitive at all.
It's not. I agree. I'm completely with you.
Yeah, it's they need a really good tutorial, and I've been looking for one about how to use OneNote and learn it in like an hour. I haven't found that yet. If anybody knows of one,
chat room, come up with something. We're looking. Right. I feel like the Surface Pro 3 is a OneNote machine.
It is, and that's why I want to learn it. And I think if I ever can master OneNote, I'm gonna maybe even trade Notepad in one day for it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The reason I like the pen is I'm using it like a mouse. For me, I'm using it as a pointing device, and I'm selecting with it and double tapping with it to open things. And this actually might make me give up attaching a mouse to everything because I'm using the pen in a way that I use the mouse currently. So that's kind of a revelation for me because I wasn't expecting to use it that way.
Alex Gumpel says, and we will set you up with this if you want, that lynda.com has some very good courses on OneNote.
Yeah. I don't want to spend a ton of time learning it, but I just want to be able to use it because I think it has a lot of features I would benefit from.
I think the OneNote 2013 Essential Training, by the way, I will set you up with this if you're interested.
Yeah, okay.
Because they are a sponsor. There's a lot of chapters. I don't know what the total length is, but it looks like it's maybe no more than a couple of hours for the whole thing.
Cool. I would invest a couple hours because I've tried to kind of just mess around with OneNote and I'm very unhappy with my results. So I would like to learn
I'm going to take it with you because I want to learn it too.
Okay.
And in fact, I think I would buy a Surface Pro 3 if I felt like, gee, this is my power tool.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of meant. It's kind of meant for that.
It's not a Nokia device, so you can't like hammer a nail with it.
Oh,
but it's.
You can drop it though. You can drop it.
You can
on
drop
a carpeted surface.
Is your S7 thinner or thicker?
It's somewhat thicker because it has Gorilla Glass applied to the outside, and it's not a ton heavier.
It seems like it's almost the same size as your.
Yeah, it's a 13-inch screen instead of a 12. But, Microsoft talks about the screen on this and says the things they've done to make it feel like it's bigger than 12. I actually think I can see more information in some apps with this Surface Pro device.
3:2 is actually a really good aspect ratio. I'm kind of
she's right about that.
It's weird.
There's something about the scaling where there is more information. And because the resolution is high, the text is very crisp. So normally I might be bothered by the smallness of it, but actually it's very readable.
It is.
Yeah.
One weird problem I've had, and I think Paul's had this too, although Microsoft knows about this problem and they say they're going to issue an update to fix it, is even though the new power connector connects really quick and much better and more securely than the other one, there's something happening with power on these early devices where it looks like it's charging and it's not really charging. And then even if it does charge, I just looked at my device. I had just charged it up. It has the wrong date and the wrong clock time on it now. So they know there's some weird bug with that, but they say they're going to issue an update before they make these generally available in the market. So they know that.
So
So all in all,
for you,
I like it,
the Acer's a better choice.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense. Paul?
I mean, I like it a lot. Like I said yesterday, I need to travel with it because I don't use this device at home as my primary workstation. Although with the right docking, I might. I'm going to test that with the pluggable unit that I have. And when the Microsoft one comes out, I'll test it with that as well. But, I do use a desktop PC and a big screen and all that kind of stuff. But, I'll use the device around the house, like Mary Jo sometimes, move around a little bit. And, of course, when I leave the house. And this week I'm going to Colorado. So, I want to use it on a plane. I want to use it in a hotel room. I want to use it in a remote place and see how that really works. Because I travel a lot for work and need something that, I can type on that works accurately and reliably and all that kind of stuff. And so we'll see. So I can't yet say whether I'm going to replace my current system, but it's certainly much more viable than the previous Surface Pro devices for me. I've always kind of liked the bigger screen devices. 12 inches is not exactly a big screen in the context of, a 15-inch Ultrabook or whatever. But as Mary Jo noted, there's something about the screen where the information is crisp and clear, and there's a lot of it. It seems to be, I don't know if laid out is the right term, but it's laid out nicely. All of the apps, I've noticed this in the Mail app, because there are apps I can look at side by side. I've got a 1080p screen here that's really big, and then this 2160 by 1440 screen, which is relatively small. You can have the same app running on both of them, and there's absolutely a difference in the presentation, and it's denser and crisper on the smaller screen, which is kind of interesting. And so I do like that a lot. But overall, I mean, I think this is a Surface Pro device that a lot of, pro customers, meaning, IT pros, information workers, developers, creative professionals, et cetera, have been asking for. I mean, I think this is the device, and it's, by definition is some form of a compromise. It's not a perfect tablet. It's not a perfect Ultrabook. It can't be, but I think they've struck the right balance for their kind of productivity-oriented audience, and so I like it quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm just happy connected standby is working despite that power issue I mentioned, because
it works
Surface
every other
RT,
time for me. Is how
I know. Does it? Oh man. It's definitely holding a charge. Like I'm not having to charge it every day like I did with my Surface RT, even when I wasn't using it. So it's definitely holding the charge and letting me come back to it. The one thing that they mentioned on the Reddit AMA about the Surface Pro 3 this week, though, was that I didn't know was it goes after 4 hours into hibernation mode, and then it actually goes into sleep mode if you haven't touched
like
the
a
device.
deep sleep. Yeah.
It does, because I was wondering why I couldn't wake the device up really quickly, but it was after several hours. I was like, wow, why is it taking so long to start? And that's why they're trying to do that to conserve power. So I'm willing to make that concession.
I love that it has any form of connected standby. The notion that you could be using it around the house, in my case, around an office, and you have a meeting and 30 minutes goes by, and then you go and you just open the lid and it comes like right on, like an iPad would, like a device would.
Yeah.
Is fantastic.
That's a selling point.
It's a good, it's good behavior, from a power management standpoint.
All right. So both of you love it, but it's not necessarily the right tool for every use.
I need to, I'm a little dismayed at how quickly people have pumped out reviews of these things.
I know.
You gotta use
I need
it
to
for a
really
few
use
weeks.
it.
Yeah, you really do.
There were a couple of people that wrote reviews 2 days later. I mean, no offense to you youngsters, but seriously, I mean, no one can buy this thing until June 20th, so there's no rush. I mean, I feel like I'm on kind of a learning experience with this thing, and so every day I write something about it, and I just try to figure it out. And I don't have all the answers yet. I just got it. I mean, it's it's a week old, but so far so good.
I should report that Paul Thurrott still loves his Surface Pro 3, despite the firmware issues and the constant updates. He still thinks it's aces, and I know a lot of people who love their Surface Pro 3. Mary Jo Foley, incidentally, still using her Acer S7 laptop. Now, one of the sad topics of the year at Microsoft, of course, some significant layoffs. We broke the news like this.
It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. Actually, they're not here. They're in Washington, D.C. for the Partners Conference. They've got lots to report, all sorts of news coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 371, recorded July 16th, 2014. Microsoft's Worldwide Partners Conference. Windows Weekly is brought to you by LegalZoom. Visit LegalZoom.com to save on your legal needs and gain access to a network of legal plan attorneys for guidance. LegalZoom's not a law firm, but provides self-help services at your specific direction. Visit LegalZoom.com and use the offer code WINDOWS to receive $10 off at checkout. And by IT Pro TV. Are you looking to upgrade your IT skills or prepare for certification? IT Pro TV offers engaging and informative tutorials streamed to your Roku, computer, or mobile device. For 30% off the lifetime of your account, go to itpro.tv/WW and use the code WW30. And by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster, easier, and cheaper. Post your job to 50-plus job boards with one click. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial right now at ZipRecruiter.com/Windows. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, a very special edition of Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are live-ish from Washington, D.C., where they are in a room with other people, apparently.
Yeah.
We are.
Hey, guys. Nice to see you again. I missed you, but thanks to Father Robert Balassier, who filled in for 2 weeks and held down the fort, did a great job. But we are back. Now, what are you doing in D.C.?
We're here for the Worldwide Partner Conference. Us and 16,000 of our closest friends.
Wow, that's great. And you have you're doing this in a little room where people have joined you, so you're not alone. Unlike your usual situation.
Yeah, it's kind of like a conference room, not a.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think this single box thing is really going to work here. No. So I'm just going to stay on a double box all the time. Paul and Mary Jo are sitting close together.
Usually when you're talking, Mary Jo, I moderate comments on my website, so I hope you don't mind if I do that when you're talking.
Is that really what's going on behind the scenes? Wow. So I actually was really looking forward to coming back and doing this show this week because there's a lot to talk about. There's Satya Nadella's cryptic note to the Microsoft staff, 3,000 plus words. Some say Steven Sinofsky ghost wrote it. I don't know if that's the
nice.
No, I'm joking.
Don't worry, Leo. He cleared everything up today.
Oh, did he? All right. Actually, Jean-Louis Gasset in his Monday note, Jean-Louis Gasset, of course, former president of Apple, probably not a Windows watcher, but had, I think, a very good point in which he said, CEOs do these. He says, I believe that a CEO communication should be clearer, should be to the point, should be shorter, obviously, and not employ platitudes and cliches, but really say, here's what we're doing, here's what's going to happen. He said, when you see a CEO memo like this, it's really ass covering. That what Nadella knows is we're going to do layoffs. But he doesn't want to say we're going to do layoffs. We're going to change the company's direction. There's going to be some redundancy because of Nokia. We're going to be maybe spinning off some divisions. There are going to be layoffs. He doesn't want to say that outright. He kind of couches it in these platitudes so that when they happen, he said, but I told you. Look back at my memo. Yeah. Do you think that's credible?
It's hard to judge it from a sort of management standpoint, but it's very clear when you read something like, we're going to reduce the layers of management between decision making and so forth. He's clearly talking about laying people off.
But in such a way that you could kind of ignore it.
You know what? I will say this. Normally, when you talk about a company having layoffs, it's bad news. And obviously for the people being laid off regardless, it's bad news.
Right.
Truth is Microsoft is top heavy. There were too many employees as it was before they even had the 25,000 extra with Nokia. In my mind, this is something that's overdue. And so I'm glad they're doing it. I know it's going to be traumatic for a lot of people, and it is too bad. But I honestly, from the perspective of a Microsoft watcher, as someone who cares about the company and its products and its ability to move quickly and all that kind of stuff, Ultimately, I think this is the right thing to do. So even though it's a tough decision and a terrible thing, it's...
To be clear, they haven't announced any layoffs at this point.
No.
Right.
No.
But but everybody seems to agree that...
but they will lay off.
Well, that's that because of redundancy with Nokia and so forth, that's got to happen, but also that's what Nadella was signaling. Is that pretty clearly the case?
Yeah, but I don't think we should read that email he sent out as only a veiled attempt to cover up layoffs. There was a lot of other stuff in that memo too. And I felt like it was him saying, hey, we're starting our fiscal 2015, July 1st. Here's kind of my really high level vision about where I want to move this company. And I think in the next few weeks, we're going to see each of those steps that were laid out at a really, really high level articulated very, very much in detail. So when it's time to announce the layoffs, which could be this week even, we're going to hear a lot more details and some pretty plain talk about that.
Would this be, I mean, it's not the first time Microsoft laid off people.
No.
Yep.
So is this a remarkable...
2009 was the last big one. They laid off 5,800 people that year in the midst of the recession. And a lot of the people, they found other jobs inside the company. So there was a difference between the headcount total reduction and actually how many people left. But yeah, I think this is going to be something, well, the predictions are this could be something even somewhat bigger than that. So it could be more than 5,000 people.
Wow. That would be the largest layoff in history at Microsoft. Easily.
It would be.
But, again, remember, they just picked up 25,000 additional employees.
Right.
Yeah.
There's going to be some redundancy there.
Right.
Here's,
so
I'd like to
now
run.
They have 125,000 people who work at Microsoft.
You could 5,000 is not even 1%. Wait a minute, that's not right.
I can't do that kind of math in my head.
It's not even 5%. I'm sorry. Let me just as a game, as an exercise, read you. So Gasset wrote the letter that he thought Nadella should have sent out. And now, again, Gasset's not a Microsoft expert, but he's a former executive.
Okay. Did you read this Gasset thing?
No, I never read it.
Let me read you. Well, I don't want to poison your mind, Mary Jo. If you prefer I don't read it out loud, I won't. He says, this is what we should have heard from Nadella. This is the beginning of our new fiscal year 2015. That's correct, July 22nd. The quarterly results for the final quarter come out. And of a new era at Microsoft. I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is the old devices and services mantra won't work. By the way, not so old. Steve Ballmer created that just a year ago.
By the way, I would also point out that when you say devices and services, and then you say mobile first, cloud first, you just said the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe if you're not going to do phones and Xboxes, there's no devices in that. You could do mobile first, cloud first without actually making hardware. Couldn't you?
Fair enough.
You could.
Okay.
For example, he says, this is Gasset channeling Satya Nadella. I've determined we'll never make money in tablets or smartphones. Which is
I'm sure
true.
he was going to say that.
Maybe. I don't think he'll ever say that, but it might be accurate. So, do we continue to pretend we're all in, or do we face reality and make the painful decision to pull out so we can use our resources, including our integrity, to fight winnable battles? With the support of the Microsoft board, I've chosen the latter. Does that, I'm not going to continue, but does that...
Good.
Oh, Mary Jo!
I don't think anybody should be listening to Jean-Louis Gasset about Microsoft, period. The guy doesn't know anything about Microsoft.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And I agree with you. But
Mary Jo has that very outspoken.
Is there anything wrong with what he just, that paragraph?
Really
Is that not what Satya Nadella is at a very high level communicating?
No, he's absolutely not saying that, right? So, in fact, if you look at his letter, he explicitly calls out a number of products, but a few products that stood out were Xbox, which has nothing to do with Microsoft's new productivity focus, and Windows Phone, which he said he was dedicated to doing. And I think today, you could make the argument that Windows Phone is sort of Windows now, where maybe it wasn't originally. Going forward, certainly it is always going to be Windows. And Windows is obviously a big focus for Microsoft, and they look at Windows sort of holistically. It's Windows on a phone, Windows on a tablet, Windows on a hybrid, Windows on a PC, Windows on a giant screen, Windows sort of in your living room with Xbox. I mean, it's Windows. So I really don't see them. I don't see them backing away from it, but more to the point, I don't see that he just indicated that he would say that either.
Yeah, and in fact, in the email, he also talked about the purpose of first-party hardware. So that would be Windows Phone, and that would be Surface. And the purpose of it, he basically said, is to light up what makes Microsoft differentiated from the competition. So he definitely did not indicate to me that he's going to dump Windows Phone or dump Surface. Not even like just a thinly veiled not saying. He said they're not going to do it, as far as I can read into that.
I think he even said that later. Didn't he kind of say, just to clarify, I'm not dumping those? Yeah.
Well, and they literally just signed on more Windows Phone hardware makers in the past couple of months than they have the previous 4 years combined.
Right. All right.
Right.
However, I might quibble with your description of it as Windows First. Yeah. Is that really what Microsoft's going to go with?
Yeah, I wouldn't read it as really as Windows First.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. No. In fact, it used to be Windows only. Then it was Windows First.
Right.
Now it's sort of better on Windows.
Yeah.
Maybe is the way to look at it.
Better on Windows, but we intend to be everywhere where there's an operating system or a platform that has substantial share. So that's pretty different.
Did we just get blurry or something?
I'm trying to clean the window. It seems to be a little fogged up there.
Is it us or
I think it's you. I'm sorry to say. Can you just bang Skype? Bang it just a little bit. Microsoft Windows 8.1 update. Just an update. It's not update 2. Pay no attention. Or is it?
So, by the way, I don't know how well you can hear me or whatever. Because I'm away this week, Mary Jo and I haven't really talked.
Wait a minute. Did I do that? Did I put a cloud? What happened? Cloud. I have a cloud.
It's
thank you.
Cloud.
I guess I pushed the R button and the rain cloud popped up. I'm sorry. Because you're out of town.
No, I can't see it.
No, only those at home could see it. All I know is Alex Gumpel goes running. I pushed a button, an odd button. I don't know what button, and Alex fixed it. So thank you. That was one cloud. Wow. So this is update 2, which will come out next week, Patch Tuesday, for Windows 8.1. If you already have update 1.
Let me see.
And Microsoft apparently doesn't want us to call it update 2.
They do not. Nope.
What is it?
It really is update 2, despite what you may read on other sites and blogs that claimed we were duped. Nope, this is update 2, everybody. We were not duped.
We were not duped.
Microsoft's calling it August updates.
I have a bigger issue with this. It's not so much what people think or whatever. It's that Microsoft in their official blog post said something about don't believe the rumors and the speculation. There's no, they actually put that in a blog post, and I actually stripped a paragraph out of the post I wrote about this because I got really irritated with that because it was clearly directed at Mary Jo and myself.
Really?
And
come on.
Really? The people that wrote that post know that this is update 2. They know that it's called update 2 internally. They know that they've stripped features from it and they've turned it into an inconsequential update. For them to actually go online in a public post on the company's website in this day and age is, I actually think, unforgivable. I found that to be incredibly insulting.
Do you feel like they spanked you?
By the way, for doing our job better than all of those other guys. That was bullshit. I thought that was awful.
But you know what, Paul? You know why I wasn't mad? I'll tell you why I wasn't mad when I read it. Yeah. If you know, like you do, how Microsoft denies things, the way they deny things is they deny a very, very specific statement.
Right.
So that they can say that they're not lying. So they said, despite rumors and speculation, we are not planning to deliver a Windows 8.1, in quotes, update 2. Right. They aren't going to call it that. But it doesn't mean that's not what this is.
Right. So what is in the name? I mean, what does it matter what you call it? Why? I don't understand. To the average Joe, call it Fred. It doesn't matter. What is it and why do we care? And
I just had this conversation with someone from Microsoft in the context of Windows Phone 8.1 Update 1, which they're calling Update.
Right.
And off the record, this person agreed with me that internally it's GDR1, it's Update 1. It's the same naming convention they've used for years. Why they've gone with this update thing has something to do with the Windows team, and they wanted to, connect it to that, and even though it has no connection whatsoever. They feel like if they call it update 1, that suggests they're implicitly agreeing to do an update 2, and they don't want to agree to anything that they're not sure they're going to do, and on and on and on it goes. It's stupid. And it doesn't really matter what it's called. The point is we know what it is. They know what it is. We've accurately reported what it is. And for them to actually then, retroactively come out and say, oh, no, there's no plans to do anything like that. Those guys, whoever told you that is involved in rumors and speculation. It's just so... It's so childish, and it's so the last regime, That is just, I agree with you. Just awful. Yeah. That's awful. That's
it's like, guys, we swept out, we swept out a lot of the problems from previous regime. Let's keep that good momentum coming.
And by the way, here we are trying to communicate something effectively because you can't.
Yes.
And then you have the balls, I don't know how else to say it, to come out later and then act like, oh, those guys, you know what? I'm sorry. That really upsets me. It was wrong. This is wrong.
We have a nice family in the studio today. And there's small children here, so I'm just saying, kids, it's not okay to talk like this, okay? Unless you're a wronged technology journalist. And what's happened is you need to understand the context. They've been beating Paul down for years, and he just finally, he ain't going to take it no more.
I'm fighting back. He's not getting beat. He's getting angry.
But I think that's a very salient point because Microsoft is unable to communicate effectively. Because ultimately, this comes down, I'm playing this person, this normal person. I don't care what you call it. I just want to know what it is and what I get from it and whether I need it. Yeah. And if it's miscommunicated by Microsoft, it is absolutely your duty to communicate it properly so people understand what they're getting. You're making up for their lack.
If they had followed the plan that they had earlier this year to include the mini start menu in Update 2, I'm pretty sure they would have called this out as Update 2 or called it at least a second update or something. They changed their mind shortly after build, from what we've heard from our sources, decided to take the mini start menu out. So then what they were left with were some very minor things, and I think they just kind of wanted to sweep that under the rug and say, hey, those are just regular updates like we always make, except here was your clue. Other updates they make to Windows, they don't call out like this way in blog posts, right? They just deliver them as part of Patch Tuesday.
Yeah, you don't have, hey, here we go. It's Patch Tuesday, and look at what you're going to get.
Exactly, right. That's why
the one thing
it's Update 2.
The one thing that they communicated in that post that I sort of appreciated was this notion that obviously, everyone at Microsoft, or all of the teams at Microsoft, are working on this rapid release cycle. It's different for every team. And with Windows, we had this sort of notion that, we went from 3-year releases down to 18-month releases with, 8.1 down to whatever it was, 3 or 6 months for I guess that was for update 1. And, now they're talking, well, we'll put little updates out every month in Patch Tuesday, which frankly is probably the right way to do it. Just eliminate that big bang approach other than for the major release.
Yeah. But here's also what they're trying to do from what we've heard. They're trying to establish a thing that they call serviceability. And that means they're trying to establish a pattern inside Windows now where they have these regularly scheduled, maybe twice a year or 3 times a year, updates. And I don't know if they're going to call them updates or what they're going to call them, just like what they do with Windows Phone, right? They're going to start doing this with Windows too. So this is one of those, but they're not wanting to call it out that way for whatever reason, whether that's because they think it'll panic normal users or whatever it is. But I think they could have really called this out and said, hey guys, we're speeding up the Windows trains even more. And here's Update 2. Isn't this awesome? You're getting another update. Yeah. They didn't do it that way. But yeah.
So from the point of view of us unwashed masses who don't follow this day in, day out, we're going to see on Tuesday an
what's
update.
Going on?
It's more, you're saying it's more than a hot fix.
Yes.
It is going to do what? What's it going to change?
Not much. Right.
Hence, Microsoft's reluctance to call it an update 2, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? If they're doing one of these every month, who cares what they call it? In other words, this type of update on a monthly schedule is great.
Yeah, it's
This
kind of like what they
update on
do
a
with
quarterly
Xbox
schedule
One.
is-
Xbox One has significant updates every month now. UI interface updates.
It's not that good, actually.
It's not as good as an Xbox
Yeah,
One.
it's not that good.
But okay, so let me propose.
No, it really isn't.
Let me propose a language that might work here. If it is a security fix or a patch, something that improves performance or behind the scenes, if there's no user interface change, that's a hot fix. That doesn't really change anything. If there is a perceptible change to the user interface, certainly a mini start menu would be that. Then it would be an update of some kind. I don't care if you want to call it update 1 or you could call it, call it the August update. I don't care. But
well, they did. Actually, they did.
Oh, all right. Well, but that's the difference between a patch or a hot fix and an actual update. There's something it's going to look different. Something's going to happen, and I, as a user, I want to know that. So that's kind of what they're doing, right? They're saying
It is.
They're acknowledging that.
Leo, this is like that adage about the weather, no matter where you live. If you don't like it, wait until tomorrow. It's Microsoft. If you don't like this naming convention, don't worry about it. It's going to be different in September. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
The point is, they were going to do something, then they did something else. That doesn't matter in the slightest. I mean, our job is just to report on it accurately.
Here's
It's
what they
just
did.
the kind of way they communicated it.
Right.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah.
They baffled. I understand what happened here. They made a change. They wanted to. They telegraphed something different to you guys.
I enjoy that you think you understand that.
You see, that's how naive I am. How innocent I am.
No, it's good. It's
somebody has to stay uncynical here, and I think Mary Jo's right. They wanted to be able to do the non-denial denial kind of thing, where it's all semantic. So yes, we didn't release a update 2. And you're scapegoats. They scapegoated you, and that's fine. And I understand why you're upset about that.
Listen, nobody enjoys a good prank as much as I do. But the problem with this, I don't know if Mary Jo, if you noticed this, but when you name something the August update for Windows 8.1, you have just named something for some August.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
the Xbox uses the same naming convention, so they'll have something called the August update for Xbox One.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, Surface
August-
does, right?
Well, except that
Surface
it's
does
not.
that too. Right.
No, but it's August what? There's going to be an
know.
August next year too. Are you not going to update anything? I mean, why can't they be precise? I don't understand. These naming conventions make no sense.
You know what? Part of this too is because they don't want us to show people how the sausage is made, right? They just want to come out when they're ready and say, here's your update. They don't want us to report that they were going to do this, then they changed their mind, then they did this, and then they changed the name. They don't want that insider baseball out there publicly.
Well, and they're selling sausage, but they're telling you it's prime rib. I mean,
yeah.
So,
I mean, you are going to get 3.
It's a veggie sausage.
It's not merely they don't want you to know how it's made. They kind of don't want you to know what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're getting 3 things as part of this update too. You're getting some touchpad improvements, you're getting Miracast receive capabilities, and you're getting a SharePoint online login prompt minimizer. Okay, very, very small things. But those are part of what was going to be called update 2.
Go ahead.
But I just want to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's even less than what you just said. So the SharePoint thing, you're getting a checkbox
I know.
that will tell the system not to bother you again. You're literally getting a checkbox.
Yeah.
And that Miracast receiver thing, that's not a feature of Windows. It's just APIs so that developers can write a Miracast receiver application for Windows. By the way, an application that can only work on the desktop. It's not Miracast receive for modern Windows. It's only for the desktop. This is a really lame set of updates.
Yeah, I agree. They could have called it the update lame or lame update, but they decided August instead.
Okay.
Yeah. And we should say also, it's not just client. So Windows Server 2012 R2 is also getting an update next week that they also are not calling update 2. And it's going to have different performance and reliability changes that we still don't know what those are. But there will be no changes to the APIs. So if your app already is on there, it should still just work. That's all we know about the server side one.
Okay.
This is why we drink on the job.
But I got to tell you, you guys are deep in it. This makes more difference. This is a big deal for you in a way that it's really not.
I know. I
Everybody
agree.
else. We're going to get something on Tuesday. Big deal. Whatever. Something happens.
Yep.
I don't care.
Agreed.
You could call it, Fred. It doesn't matter to me. I just.
The reason this is sort of a big deal is because for a brief moment in time, and we could literally be talking about just a few weeks, this was going to be a major deal.
Oh, okay.
There was that moment in April where they thought we can do more, we can do this faster, we can bring the start menu up before threshold. Let's do it. It will be update 2. It will be amazing. It's coming out.
That would have been a
August.
big deal.
And
yeah.
I haven't heard. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know if Mary Jo knows what happens, but something happened internally. This was a more difficult project than they thought. Maybe they just decided to rally around, threshold. Whatever the reason, they scaled it back. So it was just a very short period of time where this could have turned into something very major. And I think that's why it's even more disappointing in a way if you kind of know what was happening, what it turned into. Because this was very close to being something very cool.
Yeah, so that's the truth, is that most of us don't really know that.
Yeah.
Only people who I don't even know. Do I know that? Did you talk about this last week? I didn't know that they were thinking about bringing back the start menu Tuesday.
Well, it would have been.
We talked about it a while ago, right? I think
okay.
A couple months ago, maybe.
Yeah,
and the average user doesn't know what they're missing. Only those who are paying close attention. And God knows
listen, I'm
not.
here. I am literally here to disappoint people. So that is my primary function.
IFA's coming up early September, and we'll see. What is this? The selfie phone? What is that?
Mary Jo, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. I mean, this is, again, something we think is going to happen based on an invitation that Microsoft sent out. It said, join us for more, quote, FaceTime in Berlin, Germany. I'm frozen again.
I know, and you're frozen in a kind of a funny face, too, which is appropriate for FaceTime. All right. Okay, there we go. We restart our video.
Yeah, we're having a little Skype.
This keeps happening.
I know. Alex said he's going to work with me on it and fix it.
Yeah.
We think it's the Lumia 730 that's going to launch at IFA. And I don't know if that would be considered a, quote, high-end phone or a mid-range phone or what, but supposedly a 5-megapixel camera that's front-facing, based on what rumors have had.
5-megapixel front. Is that the highest resolution front-facing camera made?
I believe so right now. Although, I mean, a device like the One M8 also has a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. The difference here, though, of course, is the One M8 is a flagship phone. And this is supposed to be a mid.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. Mary Jo's right on that. Where it's like, is it a high-end low, like an upper range high low phone, or low end mid range? I don't know, but the difference here would be the pricing. You're going to get a 5-megapixel front-facing camera on a relatively cheap phone, probably around $230 off contract. And the idea, of course, is that this is more geared for younger people who, want a selfie phone that's also not, super expensive. And it's good for emerging markets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poor people take more selfies. I think that's a fact. I'm just kidding.
No comments.
Why? Just because you don't have the money to buy a flagship phone, you shouldn't be disadvantaged in terms of selfies.
Right.
More selfies.
More selfies for everyone.
And the new thing apparently with selfies, it's not enough just to sit there and take it, with you in front of you like this. Now they got those, and this is big in Asia apparently, where you have the stick and it holds the phone.
I saw that. So weird.
Yeah.
It's like a robot arm, and it like holds the phone out.
We've used that, and you see this. Yeah, it's just a little. It's a monopod, but not designed to put on the ground, but to be held, so you could take a selfie. Let's not do that, kids.
Yeah, I'm expecting it here in the U.S. Apparently, it's starting to just come over now. So,
I've done that for a long time, and I've seen people do that. But you're saying that everybody does it in Asia now? This is like,
it's becoming like more common to see out in public. Basically,
I have one.
See, you're a trendsetter.
A trendsetter, a company that we got it. I got it 2 years ago or a year and a half ago at CES. It's the same company that makes these very lightweight monopods for the poor guys on film crews who have to hold the microphone up out of the camera range. The same company makes, they said, well, we could take these carbon fiber poles and turn them into selfie poles. So I have one, and it's got a little, the problem is you have to get a way to get it, you have to have a special case or something so that you can put it on the end of that's neat. I mean, it's not neat. It's not something anybody should do. It does give you a good result, though, except like any selfie, you always have one hand out of the picture.
Yeah.
Right.
You look like kind of a weird person.
Yeah, and that's the other. I mean, I don't even do selfies now, like just holding my phone. I always think it's a little strange, but to carry a stick around and do it. But I find it fascinating just from a sociological trend thing. You know, this is becoming the norm. So
I've always felt like it's very self-involved, and you know, it's like look at me, look at me, look at me. But it really, if you look at Instagram, the most liked pictures on Instagrams are almost always selfies. People want to see. Well, if you're a beautiful, person, they want to see you.
Right. Yeah, it helps if you're good looking.
I don't take. No, I try not to do too many selfies. I keep the selfies down to a minimum.
Of the 10 preview, what would you say is the number one thing that you saw that will be important in terms of enterprise? Because this was an enterprise event. This was supposed to reassure people that Windows 10 is now your upgrade option.
I think the teacher's pet would like to answer this question.
Command prompt.
Okay, yes. Tell me.
They're redoing the command prompt so that you can do a lot of things that you couldn't before, like copy and paste, and it's kind of like Notepad.
You can do it today, but it's non-standard. So you have to bring up that window command button.
Right, but now it's all integrated in.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a great post that Raphael did on his blog within Windows. If you want to know every little tiny detail about the new command prompt.
Somebody will.
Somebody will.
Okay, wait.
I'm just kidding about the command prompt.
I use command prompt all the time.
Yeah.
I have the icon on my desktop so that I can run as administrator every time I want to run it. But, I mean, that is kind of important for people who are running in the enterprise because I use it all the time.
Right.
Well, I think of it more as a little kind of fine-tune closing the loop kind of feature. Something that's been stupid about command prompt ever since there was a command prompt. It just was non-standard in those ways. Couldn't select text, couldn't copy paste, etc. So to me, it's just one of the many things they're doing to fine-tune and make things consistent. So on that note, it's a positive development. I wouldn't have listed it first, but it's, it's...
This is someone who uses Notepad, so you know.
Sure. Which, by the way, is true. We're driving here in the car, going 80 miles an hour on the, what is it, the 110 or whatever that was. And
101.
101, whatever.
I don't know.
I'm from Massachusetts. So she's writing...
We were writing our stories in the back of the car because we had a driver.
Notepad full screen with no word wrap on. What is wrong with you?
I put word wrap on at first.
and then to select the text, she's using her finger.
I know, because my mouse was broken.
Oh, right.
But I would have used my mouse otherwise.
Also, she just wanted to show off the fact that she had a touchscreen.
Yeah.
That's
What's
true.
wrong with that?
Sort of.
That's true.
Yeah.
No?
No.
No?
I thought it was interesting.
Well, how about this? Why is it called Windows 10?
Because what was it? Windows 7, 8, 9?
7, 8, 9.
Like 7. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. All right, so
you are really, really tired.
We are.
I thought it was funny. That tells you how tired I was.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the justification they used was that there were a lot of obvious names they could have gone with. Windows 1, just Windows. Windows 9 was the next logical one. But they feel like this is a monumental enough release, which is actually laughable in some sense, but that this is a version of Windows, the basic platform that will run on those little embedded devices, on phones, on small tablets, big tablets, PCs of all kinds, 2-in-1s, Xbox One. That's big, and this needs to have a new... it's like skipping a grade. When you're really smart, you move ahead.
And also, I mean, they didn't really state it this way, but they're trying to distance themselves from Windows 8, right? Yep. They're saying,
really distance, right?
Yeah,
9 was not distant
skip
enough.
Skip that 9 and just go straight to 10. And also, they touched on this very briefly, but this is the last major version of Windows, they're saying. And from now on, the way they're going to update it is you're going to get incremental updates on some regular basis if you're signed in as a user on Windows. And that's the way they're going to do it from now on. It's not going to be these every 1 or 2 years is a big bang Windows release. That's over now.
Right.
But wait, to say that is to say, look, we think we've got the formula down.
Yep.
We think the kernel is stable. We think we get the performance out of the operating system that we want. The only thing we have to do is tweak it.
Yeah.
Are we there? Are we able to say, look, the engine's solid. We just got to change the body?
I mean, this is already an engine, to use your terminology, that runs on today things that are such, phones, tablets, PCs, all the way up to Microsoft Azure in the cloud. I mean, so I think they have proven that core of the OS does scale already, which goes back to my original comment, which is it's sort of a baloney thing to say that this suddenly with this one, because we're going to call it something different, it's a major change. I mean, really, this is a fairly minor update to Windows 8, I would say, but I think they're trying to, like you said, distance it from that release. So.
So this is all just about getting away from the stink?
Yes.
Somewhat.
Getting upwind. Yes.
Did you know you're not supposed to use a Bluetooth mouse on a plane?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I tried to use mine the other day on the plane, and
They told you to shut it down?
Yes, they did.
Mary Jo's on the do not fly list now.
I am. I am. And I'm like, oh no, that means I'm going to have to use touch.
It's pretty much like you and the guy who was trying to light his sneaker on fire.
It
They were
was.
like the
That was
same
us.
category.
And I was like questioning the flight attendant. I'm like, when did this
She's
happen?
got a mouse.
Hold on.
Half the plane would have gathered in like one end of a hallway before someone was like, a mouse?
Well, you know what I did? I shouldn't admit this because I will be on the do not fly list. So I just put it on my lap and was still using it.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, it's been proven by the TSA that if they can't see it, it's not a security risk.
Right. There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Just wait till they figure out that if you punctured your laptop,
I
the
know.
LiPo batteries, you could actually burn a hole through the hull.
Don't be saying this. You know what? We won't be able to carry our
Actually, you wanna
laptops
know-
anymore.
Especially if you have a unibody and you can't remove the battery. It's like, no, they just can't come into the plane. I'm sorry.
One thing I learned recently is, you always get those safety demonstrations on a plane, and they talk about how, if this happens and the oxygen mask comes down, make sure you do yourself first and then your kid. You know how much oxygen they have for you? It's like a minute.
I know.
It's like, so if you're not flying to Seattle with this mask on your face. Like, if they don't fix the the pilots have more, they probably have several minutes of air, but you just have a minute or maybe 2 minutes, whatever the figure. It's a low figure, but they have to fix that issue pretty quickly.
Yep.
Because otherwise,
It's
you guys.
it's the emergency descent. You get it down below. Alex, 14,000 feet. You're a pilot. 10,000. Get it
Alex,
down below
you've
10,000.
probably had to do this before since you're an unsafe
Yeah,
flyer.
true.
No, I think the emergency procedure is if the masks drop down, you actually elbow everybody else out the way and grab their masks.
Right.
Right.
Now you've got a full 3-4
Yeah,
minutes of life before you pass
Still
out.
we're covering this,
Right?
just for future reference.
Windows Weekly, giving you the skills you need to survive.
And apparently
In the
to fool
apocalypse.
people on an airplane that you aren't using a mouse.
I know. I just am appalled I can't use my mouse on the plane.
Oh my gosh. Let me do a question that just requires wild speculation. I know we never do that
never.
on the show, but why wasn't this the way it was designed in the first place? And I'm serious about this. This is not a throwaway. I mean, when they sat down with the original Windows 8 product team, was it, look, we want them to use modern. We need to push them to modern, and we believe that if we give them good enough apps, they're all going to abandon the desktop. So it's another way of asking, is this backpedaling and saying, okay, you don't want to use modern?
Can I swear? Is that
Swearing
is it okay?
is perfect.
Because I will.
You got the dump button, right?
I actually heard back from Steven Sinofsky when I first originally offered this up as the reason for this and many of the other problems with Windows 8, which was how come Windows 8, blah, 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 whatever the rest of that question is. It doesn't matter. You can ask this question about anything about Windows 8. And because it was Steven Sinofsky, the answer was always that's why. It works with everything. And so he wrote me back when I said whenever I don't know if I tweeted this or something, and he goes, it's funny, I'm just looking over the planning documents for Windows 8, and I don't actually see that as a reason anywhere.
Ooh.
Those are the super secret documents.
Yeah.
The reason is because yes, Windows 8 was unique for many reasons, not just the combination of two operating systems into one unholy mess, but also because for the first time Microsoft really took a no prisoners kind of approach to Windows, where in the past they always offered you the way to go back to the old way of doing things. When they improved the start menu in Windows Vista, you could get a classic start menu for the Windows 2000 start menu or whatever it was, Windows whatever. They always offered that kind of way to go back. Even Windows 95, you could run Program Manager if you wanted to as your shell. So Windows 8, they thought they had the answer, and the one thing I will defend that they did, part of the rationale I will defend, is that they felt like they were so far behind that if they could move decisively, it would be the right thing to do. And actually, that on the surface sounds like a great idea or the right approach. But they took such a tunnel visioned way to do it. They just ended up really upsetting most of the user base and their most important user base, the enterprise.
Right. And then, and developers, right?
Everybody.
If they hadn't taken the hard line with developers and then kind of wavered about, is HTML5 the right solution or .NET? And they kind of made the .NET community feel unwanted. So people didn't build Metro-style apps. And then they were like, oh, now we don't have any compelling apps to give people a reason to go to the Metro.
This just came up on last week's show. I don't remember the exact figures, but I had been looking at the Microsoft by the Numbers website for completely unrelated reasons. And they have not factoids, but facts about, number of apps made, number of apps sold, number of apps downloaded between Windows and Windows Phone. And they have them separate. They're in separate little tiles. But the Windows Phone numbers are dramatically higher than Windows. And some people will say that, Windows Phone has been out for twice as long. Okay, fair enough. But I actually think it's because in Windows people have a choice. And a lot of people have simply chosen not to go to the store, or they've looked at the store and said, what is this stuff? What are these like weird Fisher Price apps? What is this? And they just don't see the value in it. I remember early on having a discussion with somebody about, Metro at the time and, could Office work in this environment? What would that look like and everything? And I thought, there's no reason you can't have a professional app in this environment. And yet here we are years later. We really still don't have any really good examples of complex.
A couple. Like Microsoft built a CRM app that's pretty good, Metro style one. There's
OneNote is in that territory.
Yeah, there's some Dynamics ERP.
Even that, I mean, you figure that if they really wanted to push that ecosystem, they would have made OneNote and Link phenomenal as apps.
And
they would have made those things a thing that you say, that's why I want to use OneNote. That's why I want to go to the app.
OneNote is the one I think that maybe.
You think so? You don't like OneNote better on the desktop?
No, I do. I use the desktop version, but I.
OneNote Metro style is not that bad.
I think people.
But I mean, not that bad. It's not the same as.
It's not like
that's why
better,
I would use it.
right?
It also is notable, perhaps, that it completely usurped the normal navigation and user interface of a Metro app to provide its own.
Right.
So OneNote as an app was perfect because it didn't act like an app.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next topic. I have something to say to the Wall Street Journal.
Are we going to swear again?
And that is.
Wait, can we have a dramatic close up here because this could get personal.
No, I'm not going to say it. So I'm better than that. The point is, I think you alluded to this essentially when we were talking back there. Windows, when you move from Windows Vista to Windows 7, the system requirements went down. When you move from Windows 7 to Windows 8, again, the system requirements went down. The side effect of that, now we don't know how they're going to work with Windows 10. I'm not saying they're going to go down again, but essentially, if you have the same hardware, the next one runs better. The performance is better. There are other improvements in the system, too, around battery life and other things. So you see advantages there as well. Windows 7 class hardware, Windows 8 class hardware, obviously, is going to run this thing fine. I don't think we need to qualify that in any way. Unless you're running Surface RT, then you're screwed. But I mean, Windows 7, 8, I think will be fine.
Yeah.
And if Microsoft were to say something like, if you buy a Windows 8 PC right now, you get the automatic upgrade path.
Yeah.
Then
that's what they need to say.
By the way, one of the big rumors leading into this event was that Windows 10 now would be free for Windows 8 users. Now, they never said that. In fact, they refused to talk about licensing.
They refused to talk about pricing or licensing at all.
Yeah, which kind of makes me wonder how this came up. Except for one thing. When you go back to build and you listen to Terry Myerson talking about how they're going to bring the Start menu back to Windows and they're going to bring floating Metro Universal App Windows back to Windows, or to Windows. He described it, you recall, as a coming update to Windows 8.
Oh.
Right? Now, we've kind of, done the semantic, pedantic thing around that, or the pedantic semantic thing, however you want to say that. But it's interesting. I actually sort of feel like that rumor is based on something and is true. And when you put those two things together, it almost suggests that he was kind of saying that. Windows 10 is going to be treated as an update to Windows 8. So if you're on Windows 8, you're just going to get it possibly through Windows Update, as a very natural update. Now, Windows 7, maybe you have to pay for it. Maybe they change their minds on that. I think they really are not sure yet how to handle this.
Yeah. And they want to make some money off this, right? So Windows 7, if that's
they're not a charity,
free, right?
Sure, but
that'd be kind of crazy.
I'm wondering. I think these things might be tied together.
Yeah, I think you're right. Officially today, we're targeting by mid 2015.
Oh, they said mid 2015.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Did you hear?
I didn't hear that. But
what did you hear?
Just later in the year.
Well, I thought they said we're targeting
I'm not saying I just didn't hear it.
2015.
Okay, did they? I mean, I didn't hear it.
I thought they did.
I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just.
But that's street release. So if the street gets it mid 2015, when do manufacturers get it?
Earlier than that.
Well, I obviously the
well,
goal.
there's a WinHack.
Not after.
There's a WinHack. Did you hear? They're bringing
That's
WinHack
right. Yeah,
back.
By the way, well, no, there's more than a WinHack. There's going to be several WinHacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one big thing anymore,
Right.
right? It's sort of like maker fairs.
None of this is going to be tied to.
A lot of people don't remember WinHack, Windows Hardware Engineering Conference.
Yep.
Which
WinHack
is
was the best.
It was
They
the
had
best.
really nice parties.
Well, here's why it was
I
the best.
remember that.
No, because when you think about you're making a new platform, typically Windows, but not always Windows, and you're going to disclose information about this to the outside world, and so you would start with the low-level device driver writer types, the hardware guys, because they were the ones that were going to make the devices and PCs and things that would run this system. So they were always first.
Yep.
That was WinHack.
Yep.
And then you would have a PDC for regular software application developers. And then you would have Tech Ed, obviously, and you could show off the business features there. And then you'd have an event, whatever it might be, just for consumer features. But it always started at WinHack, and that's why WinHack was cool. You could go to WinHack and really early on find out about what they were doing. It was where we would see the hardware accelerated graphics that were going to be in Longhorn.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
Remember at the time they were going to scale the apps. You were going to be able to take an app and stretch it out and scale it, but manually. And of course, it never happened in the OS. But the WinHack was cool.
Yeah. So they're bringing that back, and it's going to be in March. So that's kind of a clue, right? They're going to be talking to a lot of. Well, they're already talking to OEMs, but they're going to talk even more intensely to them starting in March. So that means the OS will be very close to being baked.
Yeah, so I would say before that happens, there will be a consumer release. They said very early.
They said early 2015 for the consumer release.
January, I've heard.
So that's the one that's going to run on ARM.
Yeah, and we'll include a phone version, right?
And we'll
So if you're
include a
waiting for the and that's maybe that's when the Surface guys get good news
Or the bad news.
They're going to get news either way.
So wait. This May 2015 date, that's across all platforms.
So May 2015. No, May 2015 is a rumor.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, no.
I didn't hear that.
So we've heard mid
well
2015.
Mid 2015.
We know April is the developer release its build. So they're having another build.
Another
That's
build in April. Yep.
So we know early 2015 for consumer. We know April for developer.
Right.
And beyond that, we just.
Oh no, and we know sometime very soon for server and the management tools.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So I think that's going to be
That's this year, though.
Tech Ed Barcelona. That's my
I
guess.
do too.
In late October.
Yeah. That's an obvious time.
Yeah. So those are the dates that we know and can kind of extrapolate from. So
they could release the next version of server and just say we got rid of the start screen, and they would get a standing ovation.
Right.
That would be all they need to do. That's all they need to do.
How do you run a server without a start screen? I don't understand that. I mean, it's impossible.
Tiles.
Interesting.
Tile world.
It's that special stop bash tile.
Yeah. Right.
The goofy thing is, I distinctly remember talking to those guys the first time they shut it off, and I was like, "Oh, come on!" And I don't remember. It wasn't. I don't remember who. It doesn't matter who it was, but somebody from the server team said, "No, you don't understand. We're going to be able to make all these great little in-tile status update things. It's going to be like a dashboard that will show you the health of your server. It's going to be awesome." And I thought, okay, actually, that does sound awesome. I don't think there's been a single tile made that does anything.
It doesn't sound
like
awesome because unless you're just running one server in your data center, you've got racks and racks of virtualized servers. You're not going to have an at-a-glance view of every server that's there.
But what I'm describing is so pretty. Why
it is pretty, but
yeah.
Now, what would have been pretty is if there was a tile view I could run on a Windows 8 client that showed all my servers. Now, that's actually useful. That I would buy.
And by the way, it does not require a start screen on the server. Just a thought.
Yeah.
If only there was some way of instrumenting a server and getting information back from it. Anyway.
No one's figured that one out.
Someday.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting that we kind of have the roadmap.
I hope you're right about the mid thing. I didn't hear that.
We have to go back and listen to the. By the way, the video is available on YouTube now of today's presentation.
So what I would say though is that regardless of the exact date, I mean, I think the thing they have to hit is actually hit in time for the back to school season.
I think so.
Actually hit it, not ship in October, which is the worst time ever for releasing a product like that. And back to school actually starts kind of in June, doesn't it? I mean, it really starts early. Back to school starts when school ends.
Yep.
I got to ask. I'm excited by Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like Windows 8. I think Windows 10 will probably replace the remainder of my Windows 7 desktops.
Sure.
But why now? Why do this event now? If we're talking about a mid 2015 release, this seems far off, especially if they're not giving you a lot of specifics.
But I think
have
that's
a special event.
That's the point. And so you'll see this in other areas soon, right? It's not just Windows, but Microsoft is opening up earlier than ever before, and is giving people the chance to really impact a product more than before. And I think that's the big deal.
Yeah.
They really want to. They really screwed a lot of people over with Windows 8, and they want to make sure they get this. No, they did. I mean, they want to make sure they get this one right. And I applaud that. I mean, it's smart.
I agree.
You know.
Yep. And if you're a developer, this is not a traditional developer's preview, but it still can give you some ideas already about.
I can't wait
how
for
you're gonna
Raphael to get his hands
Oh,
on
yeah.
this thing.
How
There's
you're going to
gonna be-
restructure your app.
There will be new features that are
There
not
will.
exposed
Right.
that he will.
A lot of the API stuff will be in there, and it'll be interesting.
Is that it? Windows 10 is in the bag. I'm sorry, no. Windows Thurrott is in the bag.
Windows TH.
So you know what? I think you should make a pact on this show. It's always Windows Thurrott.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. What are you talking? What is it? This thing you keep referring to? It doesn't make any sense.
You know what we used today when the event started? We were like, "What are you guys using as a hashtag?" As we tweet this, and nobody had a hashtag, so I used WTH. And people were going like, "What are you doing?" Like I'm like, "It's Windows."
Oh, the other thing they did, which is, by the way, I don't often give Microsoft credit for having a sense of humor, but when we signed in the outside, they gave you like a name tag, which you pop on your shirt, and then they have this little stack of cards, which they hand you one, and on the card it says Windows 2015.
Yeah.
And so, of course, everyone was like, huh.
Wait a minute.
And so we walk in the room, it's like, are they telling us the name of this thing is 2015, you know?
People were taking pictures of it and going, it's
was that deliberate, or did someone just not?
No, it was deliberate. It was the Wi-Fi password.
It was the Wi-Fi password for the event. Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
So there are a few people at Microsoft who understand that this has to be a little tongue-in-cheek because, Windows 8
They're pretty clear on, yeah. I would give them credit for that.
And is this the new Nadella regime? The whole idea of we're going to tell you more quickly, we're going to let you have more input, we're going to make us make Windows
here's
better.
how I think of this. And so, Nadella, Meyerson today sort of alluded to this. He didn't really go down this path too far. But in the world of today, Windows is kind of the minority platform compared to mobile devices like smartphones and tablets. In that world, Microsoft is going to put its mobile apps and services on all of these popular platforms. They're going to do it sometimes before they do it on Windows. And that's going to make some people upset, but that's just the reality of the situation. In that world, how do you retain the crowd of people that still cares about Windows, and how do you make them part of the process and all that kind of stuff? I think this is how you do that, because those MSN apps are going to be available on iOS and Android. Office is going to be available on Android soon in a very full-featured version.
And let's be honest, it's also how do we appease people that we really cheesed off with the last release?
A lot of which are the people spending lots and lots of money on Windows, like the enterprise. So I think there's there's bad news there depending on your point of view, but there's good news too. And I think the way they're doing this is correct. I think it's good.
Agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if they want to find out more information, of course, they have to go to the Win Super site. You've got a great blog post up.
Mary Jo also has,
one. All
a few
about
blog
Android.
posts,
But now we need to talk
all about Android. Hey,
about Windows.
we have an Android show.
All about Microsoft. Wait, it's all about Microsoft.
It's just all.
It's
jumbled
always
up in
all
here.
about Microsoft.
I've got the schedule in my head. It's always about Windows. What's this
about
Android thing I'm speaking of? I'm speaking in tongues.
Uh-oh. The voice
Love
of
you,
Android.
Jason.
The last time a Jesuit priest was speaking in tongues. Oh, never.
We got suppressed in 1776. That was bad.
Yes.
But now we have to get to the really important part of the show. This is the part that I think every week is what actually saves lives.
I agree.
Beer.
Oh, yeah.
Let me
I
bring
was like, what are we talking about?
Let me bring up my Untapped.
Oh, yeah.
Can you remember any of the beer?
We don't have a doc, but I slightly remember that we need a beer of the week. If we don't have a beer of the week, the show is just not complete,
It's
right?
not the same.
We should mention, when you're in San Francisco and you live in this area, obviously there are great breweries here, Lagunas and so forth, but when you're in the city of San Francisco.
The place to go, everyone, if you love craft beer, is the McKellar Bar in San Francisco. If you've never been there, it's on Mason Street, down near the convention center.
Yeah.
They have an incredible beer
This
list.
won't be the pick, but that was really good.
McKellar is there's two brothers. There's one whose last name is McKellar, one who's his identical twin who makes beer under Evil Twin. So there's McKellar and Evil Twin beers, and there's some of the best craft beers in the world. So this bar has about, 30, 40 beers on tap, and each beer is served at the correct temperature. So the beer list tells you what temperature the beer
beautiful.
is served at.
This is the real deal. It's amazing. And
I made Paul go there yesterday.
I went kicking and screaming. Let me tell you.
We both had gotten off the plane. We were both so tired, and I go, you need a beer, and I'm like, let's go to the McKellar bar. And
she said something. She said she texted me and she's like, I saved you a spot at the bar, and I was like, yep, thanks.
He was right there. Yeah.
I see the seat. Thank you.
Yeah. So we had a couple beers there yesterday.
The only place I'd ever seen Danish, it's Danish, right?
Yeah.
Danish beer was actually, it was in Europe. And when we went to Brussels a couple summers ago, we went to the, I just forgot the name of the brewery. I'm losing my mind. Never mind. We went to a brewery. Anyway, Danish beer, and it was unbelievable. And I thought, we're never going to get this in the United States.
Huh.
And then you come to San Francisco and here it is.
Now, you were on Padres Corner not too long ago, and you tried to explain to me the different types of beer, and it just...
Sure.
It went. I'm like, alcohol. I get the alcohol. That's about it. But what is this beer? What's unique about it?
Well,
it's all kinds of different.
Yeah,
beers,
this bar has all different styles too. So there's like really light Berliner Weiss. They have sours. They have.
I was going to say between the two of us, we had sours, wheat beer. We had a quadruple, like an Abbey quad.
And you had that giant sausage thing.
They also have. This is the other thing. This is the. Let me explain.
I watched.
There were.
I did not even.
This is another area where the United States often falls flat. They had 5 kinds of bratwurst there.
They did bratwurst. Sorry, I just called it sausage.
Yeah. Really good.
You just insulted an entire people.
I think I did. Oh. Yeah, but we tried a few different ones. Yeah, I had what was the one I had? Well, they had Beer Geek Breakfast on, which is like one of the most awesome beers ever. But yeah, they just had so many good ones. I don't even know what to make the beer pick of the week because there were just so many good ones.
Yeah.
So the beer pick of the week is
it's
a bar.
The bar, maybe.
The bar, yeah.
Next time you're in San Francisco, you have to stop by.
If you're a Busch beer
McKellar.
aficionado, you want to. This is a stop.
Yeah, it's a great place, and it's so close to the convention center. Even though Oracle World was in town this week, we avoided most of the Java geeks.
They're more of a wine crowd.
They are such losers. Those guys.
Well, it was funny. We're in a cab line, and Paul and I are waiting, and Paul just yells at some guy with the badge, "You're wasting your life!" I'm like, "Oh, stop!"
Like seriously, they have it was a slogan. It was something like "Program the future."
You know what? It's just like a .NET conference.
Program
Sorry,
the past.
It is.
It is, except it's irrelevant. It is.
Wow.
Oh my, so pointless.
By the way, this is the perfect time to announce that we are releasing a new show on the Twit TV network called This Week in Oracle with Paul Thurrott.
Right. I'm just gonna drink.
This Week in Java.
Right. I'm gonna hit a data source with Java, and then I'm gonna kill myself. No, it's just whatever.
Now that I've just insulted half of the developers
I know,
on
you
the planet, but that's cool.
I think those guys understand that that's why they call it a job.
Wow.
I know. Wow. Right.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I thought we were just talking about beer, not drinking it. But app of the week.
Well, I was going to say we have this preview you can download tomorrow, and so I think the app pick of the week has to be the Windows Technical Preview, which will be available starting tomorrow. So, head over to. I guess I just looked. You can't sign up today, but starting tomorrow sometime, we don't know.
Yep.
Preview.windows.com, and you have to sign up for the Windows Insider Program. Is that the right name? Mm-hmm. And then you get access to the bits, x64, x86 only. Windows PCs and tablets.
Yep.
You can upgrade from Windows 7 or Windows 8.
Yes.
Wow, that was a bunch of stuff. Windows 10, I think, is going to be a very big story in 2015. There's no doubt about that. Even before the end of the year, we had an update for Windows 10, an update that caused some concern. Let's watch.
We have had a busy week, much to talk about.
Yeah, it's actually, I have to say, the past couple of weeks have been crazy. It seems like it kind of started with that San Francisco trip, and then it hasn't let up. It's been.
Wasn't there an event this week in San Francisco? A cloud event, right?
Man, if you thought I was unhappy with going to San Francisco for that Windows thing, you can't even imagine what I would have been like after this thing.
So you punted. Was there any important news out of that?
Yeah, but it was all enterprise related. I have a little. I have part of this as my enterprise pick.
All right.
Later in the
Well,
day.
so we could save that. So normally Mary Jo likes to cover. We let her
I thought
cover
I'd
the
throw in a
B2B.
couple of Mary Jo type things here just to.
When she's not here, we really like to stick to things like Call of Duty.
Yep. We are going to discuss Call of Duty.
Yes, good. I can't wait. But let's start off with the Windows 10 technical preview. There was an update got pushed out.
Yeah.
Added
heard
one of those features that they were pushing.
Right. I had heard this was coming late in the week, which would have been great timing for me. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of happened yesterday. It was really bad timing. So whatever. I mean, I started downloading it on all my PCs and everything. And they pretty much telegraph the main features that are in there, although all of them are in some way incomplete in their current form. So the notification center, actually, I just noticed my notification center has notifications finally. I should take a picture of it.
So that was one of the things that they really touted in Windows 10. And but it didn't work in the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, this because of the way that the Windows releases were staggered before, the Action Center, Notification Center debuted first in Windows Phone and Windows Phone 8.1. And so the version we see in this build is an early version. It only has application and system notifications, and there's more stuff coming later. It's really basic looking. When you see it, it's just a plain white panel with not much going on. You can clear all the notifications now that I'm looking at it. I am curious if I click on an actual email, if it goes to that email. It does not. And so you can see it's not, it's
not fully wired up yet.
Yeah. And, shocker, whatever.
Right.
I would say that's the one actual major new feature that's in there. I mean, there's some other things. There are animations in the windows, which I find kind of annoying, frankly. There's the starts of some other Windows Phone features. Battery saver, data sense, storage sense will be in there, another Windows Phone feature. But in some ways, like the most interesting thing that's going on with this build is how this changes the way we'll be updated going forward. And they provided some details about how that process works and how it can work in the future. And I actually don't know that I linked to this in an intelligent way, but in the article that I have that is about Microsoft delivers first update to the Windows technical preview, there's a couple of graphics in there about what they call rings, and it kind of works the way Chrome does, where there's a kind of a canary branch or ring, as they call it. They have an operating system group ring, which is like the next set of users that get builds internally to Microsoft. And then they have all of Microsoft. And so there's these three rings that are internal to Microsoft that determine how quickly the people within those rings get builds. And then outside of Microsoft, at least for the consumer / client version of Windows, they're going to have, right now they have a Windows Insiders ring, right? But there's going to be a fast ring and a slow ring. And so by default, everyone's on slow. But if you want to get the updates as they're released, and it's not clear if this means individual features or rather completely new builds, but you can switch that to fast, and you'll be on a slightly faster track than you would be otherwise. And so I think this is a look at how they're going to service people in the public when this thing goes live in non-preview form, because obviously some businesses are not going to want to deploy Windows updates immediately, and this is maybe a little clue of at how that will work.
Satya Nadella in the news. Did he go to? He didn't speak at that cloud conference on Monday, did he?
Actually, he spoke at length.
He did.
At that, yes. He was arguably the biggest part of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is interesting because, of course, he came up through that part of the company, and his comfort level with this stuff is very high. You can tell. I mean, he was a major part of that. Yeah.
And nobody asked him about raises or anything like that.
Actually, somebody did ask him about raises.
You're kidding?
No. Well, actually, I'm not sure it happened in the context of this thing. It's not on the video, and so it's possible this happened somewhere else. But I just read a thing where someone had, in fact, kind of jokingly asked him about raises.
Should I ask for a raise, Satya? I work at Microsoft. I bet his new advice is, oh, yes. But don't ask me. Ask your immediate supervisor. We found out.
He's never gonna put this one behind him.
We found out he doesn't need a raise.
Yeah.
$84 million in salary, bonus, and stock grants.
Yep.
That's according
You
to...
know what the most interesting thing about this is to me is the money he was paid to stay at the company while they were looking for a CEO.
Oh, what's that?
$13.5 million.
Don't leave.
So
we may
want
have
you to
something
imagine
for
this
you.
conversation. Somebody walks into your office and says, hey, Sasha, we're looking for a new CEO. And I'm not saying you're the guy, but you're on the short list. We just want to make sure you don't go to Google or someplace while this is happening. And so if we give you $13.5 million
in stock,
will you just
not
continue
cash.
doing your job for the next 6 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me think about that. Yes. 6 months.
Yep.
Now his salary, base salary, is a little less than $1 million. It's not so great. It's
Well, that's
$919,000.
this year. So actually, starting next year, it goes up to $1.2 million.
Oh.
He gets an annual cash incentive based on performance of up to $3.6 million, and then an annual equity share of $13 million.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not the $1 thing that Steve Jobs was doing.
Well, it was always a lie anyway. You know that.
No, I know.
As you can see, that $919,000 that he made this year, that's pennies, chicken feed, like 1% of his total, and that's the token amount. It's always the stock you're interested in.
Yeah, and the biggest part of the outlay to Satya Nadella is $59 million. It's more than $59 million of as part of a one-time stock grant. But he has to hold on to that until at least 2019. So 5 more years.
Do you think he asked for that raise?
No, I think he let karma take its course.
Did karma do it? Yeah.
Karma worked out.
Now
for
we
him.
know why. He says, you should all do what I did. Maybe you'll get $84 million.
I will never have $84 million, Leo.
I'll never see.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You know what? Let me tell you something. He's the CEO of Microsoft.
And actually, in my article, I tried to kind of drive that home. And I think we've talked about this a little bit. Satya Nadella, just by uttering something in public in front of TV cameras or microphones, can change the stock price of Microsoft and thus the fortunes of millions of people, like just in 10 seconds, There's an awesome responsibility there. Slightly more long-term, of course, he's running a company with over 100,000 employees, all of whom are looking to him for direction and leadership and, to make the right decisions for the company and thus for their futures and their families' futures as well. I mean, there's an industry out there that is built around Microsoft as well. I mean, this guy is as powerful and has as much responsibility as many world leaders. More than many of them, right? So this is not can you work the drive-in this weekend, Mr. Nadella? It's a little more serious than that, I don't, it's just something to put in perspective. The other thing, and I got this from Business Insider, I think, if you think that's a lot of money, Tim Cook, first year at Apple, over $300 million. Right. Jeez.
You can't blame Microsoft's board when CEO salaries are so crazy and out of control.
Yeah.
They're just keeping parity. You can, though, I think, and probably we should as a nation, start really, and as shareholders, start really questioning these enormous CEO salaries. This is something relatively new.
Right. And by the way, I would put the amount of money that sports players make into the same category, where I feel like it's outsized based on what is happening here. The other thing, by the way, is I didn't actually write about this, but if you look at the SEC filing, Satya Nadella was given that $13.2 million, I think it was, or $13.5 million just to stick around, just in case he became CEO. They gave that kind of money to other people, too, for the same reason. They also gave that kind of money, and it's not always exactly 13. Sometimes it was 8, sometimes it was 9, it depended on the person, whatever. They actually paid a lot of people to stick around during the CEO transition, specifically because them not doing so would have suggested to the outside world, to investors, that something was wrong at Microsoft. So if you're like an Amy Hood, the CFO of Microsoft, or any of the other people on the executive team, you were handed in the single digits or tens of millions of dollars just to stick it out for the year. Yeah. Just to put on appearances. And
that's pretty amazing.
And they justified it by saying, there's obviously intense competition out there for these people, and this is the the market value for these employees. Yikes.
What do you think that conversation is, though? Like, well, how much do we give? How much do we have to give Satya? $13.5 million. How much do we have to give Stephen Elop? Does it? And then, Stephen's cheap. We'll give him $8.
That's right. Right.
I mean,
imagine that little executive board meeting.
What is that?
Wait a minute.
Where do they get these numbers?
You got 13 million. They only give me 7. What the hell?
Yeah. What is the number, and where do they get it? Like, oh yeah, I'm thinking Tony Bates. Yeah, we don't really care if he leaves, do we? Oh, a little bit.
Right.
Give him a couple million. See what happens.
Tony, could you go grab some coffee while the big boys talk?
It's just, and it's not something that is part of the normal life of any other humans in the world.
It's nuts.
We only pay the president of the United States, arguably the most powerful person in the world,
I know.
$500,000 a year.
Right.
Now, admittedly, there's a good upside when you're president. 8 years.
There's some pretty bad downsides.
But there's some downsides, too.
Yeah. No, the whole thing is insane to me.
Don't you think you could get someone to run Microsoft for, let's say, $1 million?
Yeah.
Could you get the best person is, I guess, the question.
Right. That's a good question. I don't know.
I think you could have gotten Satya for $1 million. I mean, really? The guy's a lifer, a Microsoft lifer for all intents and purposes. He's not. So he gave an interview on CNBC on Monday.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw this. He addressed the karma question. Should women ask for a raise? He said, no, they should trust to karma. He said, I was completely wrong in the answer I gave because I basically took my own approach to how I've approached my career, and I sprung it on half the humanity, and that was insensitive. I gave a generic answer based on, quite frankly, what I've believed and how I've practiced and lived my life. In other words, he's saying, well, I never asked for a raise. I trusted to karma, and I thought, well, if you're faced with bias in your career, what should you do?
Sure.
He said, though, and I think he's sensitized, because he said, how would they feel by sort of getting the advice that says, be passive? In the face of bias, the last thing I want anyone to be is passive. So he says, I was naive, thinking of my own personal experience versus understanding I'm speaking to women who really, really want to make sure that people like me are making it easy for them to be able to participate in the workforce fully. So I think that's a good answer. He does say something that, he's talking about the cloud, because I guess he was there for the cloud event, and then that's why I did CNBC. But he does say something towards the end that was, I guess, I don't know if you saw this at the end there. He says, we want you to use us when you just want to save any file or any document, any artifact of yours. I guess he's talking about the cloud. And then have a natural way for us to monetize as you use more of it in the commercial context. CNBC's John Fort said, kind of the freemium model with which a lot of startups in Silicon Valley have latched onto. But Microsoft has always been fond of getting paid for the software it spent so much time and money developing, he points out. Nadella responds, well, we've always had freemium. Sometimes our freemium was called piracy.
Yeah. So, by the way, the use of the word commercial is interesting. This is something Mary Jo and I have talked about on this podcast. This is a recent addition to the Microsoft lexicon. When someone from Microsoft uses the word commercial, what they're really saying is business. What they mean is business software. And if I'm parsing that sentence correctly, it almost sounded to me like what he was saying was, we're okay with individuals, consumers, using our free services. What we're hoping for is that when they use them in businesses, that those will be paid. It seemed like that is almost what he just said there. So in other words, you as an individual, please, yes, use Outlook.com. It's free. Use OneDrive. It's free. Use Internet Explorer and Bing and MSN and Office.com and all that stuff. It's all free. But when you're at work, use Office 365. That costs something. Use Windows. Pay for Windows at work.
Right.
That costs something. It sounds sort of like that's what he's saying.
Yeah, I think it is what he's saying. Use it at home, and then when you get to work, you'll pay for it.
Because this, I think, again, I don't mean to read too much into it, but I mean, a lot of the Microsoft mobile first, cloud first thing is semi-controversial in certain circles. And I guess the thought here is that people want to use what they're comfortable with. And so if people get used to using Microsoft stuff on their, even if it's on an iPad or an Android phone or something, when they get to work, they're going to say, hey, I use this thing. I'm used to it. Do we have this thing? And maybe it will be on a Windows PC or a Windows tablet or something. but they'll stick with Microsoft's solution, and in that case, we'll be paying for it. Or, their workplace will be paying for it. I sort of wonder if that isn't what he was getting at there.
If you listen to this show, you're so far ahead of the rest of the world.
I know.
So we've been saying for probably months that Microsoft was going to drop the Nokia name and just be Microsoft on the phones. And it's a big news story this week. I didn't even do it. I've been filling in for Mike Elgin on Tech News Today. I figured everybody who watches Twit knows this. But not everybody in the rest of the world.
You got to kind of cover it. But just to be clear, yes, they're going to continue to call their smartphones Lumia. And yes, they're going to drop the Nokia name. It'll be Microsoft Lumia. So there you go.
But we knew that was going to happen. Although they have the right to use the name. It was part of the agreement.
For years and years. I mean, for some crazy amount of time. But, of course, they need to go with their own brand. I mean, they can't keep using the Nokia name. So we've already seen it. All the apps are turning into Lumia apps. It's happening. So
we just reviewed the $79. Was it the $530? I can't remember. It's really kind of it's cheap and it's colorful backs, great for kids.
Hockey pack.
Yeah, but it still says Nokia on it. The one we had from Cricket
So the current generation, the 830, the 730, 735, and the 530 are going to be it. I think for the Nokia branded phones.
Yeah,
this is the end.
This is the end. What is replacing the Lumia 1520?
Oh, God, Leo, I don't know. There have been so many rumors about, well, first of all, a 1030, right, a 40-something megapixel replacement for the 1020, which I would love to own. A 1525, 1530 type device.
Yeah.
Sure. The thing about the 1520, though, is honestly, today, that thing is still very modern from a hardware spec perspective.
Absolutely. Everybody else is now just releasing their phones.
Yeah,
that size,
so
right?
I don't think there's any reason to replace that one yet. I actually have a bigger issue with the 1020 because the 1020 is underpowered, especially for the size of the camera that sensor it has.
It's almost 2 years old too, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty old.
It's about a year and a half. Yeah, well, not quite a year and a half, but it's mid 2013.
But that was the first pure view, the 41 megapixel.
Yeah,
phone.
The only one they've ever made with that kind of camera, and it's just getting long in the tooth. Really slow performance.
Can it go to cyan or black? I mean, what is it? Is it up to date?
Yeah, actually, it is on cyan. Yeah, right now. Cyan
8.1.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Will they replace? Okay, so right now the Nokia branding is on the phone. It says Nokia.
Right.
So you've got the company Nokia, you've got the kind of phone, the Lumia, and then you have the number.
Right.
They're going to put Microsoft where it says Nokia, or they're just going to call it
we
Lumias,
haven't seen. They haven't discussed that yet, and so I think that announcement's actually going to be very soon. But I suspect what they're going to do is literally have the word Microsoft be there. Hopefully not Microsoft Mobile.
There's not that much room on the back of these.
Somebody made this comment to me. I don't know if it was in comments or on Twitter, but it was actually a pretty decent comment about the state of Windows Phone, which was just that, when you walk around in the world with a Lumia and somebody sees it and says, "Oh, what is that?" I've often had people say, "Oh, is that the new iPhone?" And then you hit him in the head a couple of times. And you say, "No, that hurt," right? Because that's a Lumia. I don't think people understand Nokia here in the United States. They don't understand the term Lumia. But I think if you said, "Oh no, this is a Windows phone," they'd
get
okay.
that. Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily know what one looks like, but that makes sense to them. I think
Now I know why it looks so weird.
Yeah, I almost wish they would put Windows Phone on it. But I don't know. Microsoft's trying to push the brand. The Surface is Surface. Lumia is Lumia. Maybe it just says Lumia.
And reluctant WP guy again in the chat room. Makes a good point.
Just get him on the show. He could replace Mary Jo.
Well, in the U.S., the Nokia brand maybe didn't carry a lot of weight, but it sure does in Europe, the Middle East, Asia. That is a huge brand. Is this a mistake for Microsoft to drop that?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I understand that question. They're going to continue using the Nokia brand on the the candy bar phones, the kind of the dumb phones. But I think with the Lumia brand lineup, I think they need to go.
It is a Microsoft thing.
Yeah. I mean, they for better or worse, it's theirs now. They're going to have to take make their own run with it.
I'm really tempted to order this Master Chief collection of Halo. It's every
I don't know
map
if you're paying
ever.
attention to the story. Did you look at the specs on this thing?
No.
This is a 45 gigabyte download.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. On day one, which is November 11 in the United States, you will need to download another 20 gigabytes of additional content.
Whoa.
Now, the way they described it was that you will be able to start playing the campaign immediately. You don't have to worry, whatever. But I think some of the online stuff is actually going to require this day one update. So that's, and then 65 gigabytes of stuff.
See, now you know why I put a 2 terabyte drive on my USB port. I don't worry about that.
I really wish they had the forethought to make the hard drive something you could just unplug and replace, with a bigger unit.
You can't. That's right.
So I don't understand. This thing is the size of my Volkswagen. Why isn't there a drawer that pops out?
Yeah.
I should be able to say Xbox, hard drive out. No?
So, but think about it. You're getting every version of Halo, right?
Well, all of the versions that had Master Chief, so 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
All of the multiplayer maps across those releases, including the PC versions.
That's got to
So
be a lot of maps. That's hundreds of maps, right?
And then there's something called Spartan Ops, which is
that's a top-down
co-op
isn't that?
thing.
Oh, it's co-op.
No, this was part of Halo 4. I never actually played. I don't recognize the name either. I don't even know what this is exactly, but it's a like a co-op thing. It's 10 episodes, I think. That's not even coming. That'll be another download in December. Wow. So this is like some massive historical document.
It's a historical document. It's exactly what it is. I mean, this is. I'll be playing versions of Halo I played on Tech TV, right? I mean,
yeah.
But
I knee jerk.
I'm going to buy it. $60.
There's no way I'm not going to get this. I mean,
it's like $1 a gigabyte. It's a good deal,
right? Yeah, but now I have to I'm out of space. So now that I've done this, I am literally out of space. So now I have to make a decision. Do I actually want to attach a hard drive to this stupid thing?
Because you got Modern Warfare coming too.
Right, so that's the other one. So Modern Warfare, I can look it up, I guess. I'm not even sure
just
how big
the Kevin Spacey files alone are going to be gigabytes.
Yep, yeah, just these 25 gigs of Kevin Spacey skins. This one's funny because there's so many different versions of this game, and it's not as bad on digital. But if you were to go into a store and actually look at the versions, it's like this crazy number of editions you can buy, and they all come with special weapon packages and, brass
Advanced Warfare Bundle.
It's
the
really
Warfare Day 0 edition.
But the one you want, unless you don't have
which
an Xbox
one do I
One
want?
yet.
There's Atlas Pro, there's Atlas Limited. You could spend $130 on this game.
There you go all the way down to the bottom, and so digitally there's 2 versions. So there's a $100 version, which is the one I get because the truth is for me, like I do go through the single player campaign, I like that, but I then spend the next year playing this game online.
This
and
is
the way they've
your
been doing
game.
Yeah. So in the past, like in the past 2-3 years, you would buy this season pass, and it was basically it was $60. So it was kind of like you were buying the game again, but it got you whatever I think it was usually 4 drops of DLC content, multiplayer maps. There was like an extinction thing they did this time around. They did zombies in some of the games. And this is basically a way to pay for all that stuff up front in one package. And so it's the game, it's all the stuff you get in all the digital stuff you get in the higher end physical packages, and then the DLC content over the next year. So basically what I've just done is committed myself for the rest of 2015 to what I'm going to be doing with Xbox One.
So forget Halo. You're never going to play Halo. I love that this has got Kevin Spacey in it, which is just bizarre.
I know.
And it looks...
What you're seeing
it's like a futuristic Top Gun.
Everybody ready?
Is it
so the other
a movie? Is it a game?
Yeah. I think this is like like one of the canned, in between.
This is a cutscene, I know, but I mean, still. Yeah. Let's see if I get there. There's the Golden Gate Bridge.
But, there are elements of
politicians don't know how to solve
other
problems.
Games in this, like Titanfall.
Oh, I love it. That's the the game of whatever, the House of Cards version of Kevin Spacey. That's the
right.
Oh, I can't wait. This is clearly going after people who are House of Cards fans.
I know.
A whole new demographic.
I don't know what the crossover is there. It's like me and you,
me and you.
Yeah.
So it's still going to be a shoot 'em up, but Kevin Spacey will show up once in a while? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, he'll be part of the single-player campaign. He's probably basically
Tells you
the
what to
bad
do.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the guy.
Is he a good guy or a bad guy? We don't know.
I think he's probably a bad guy.
It'd be fun to play Kevin like you play the dog, says Gomery.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin, get over here.
I'm going to play Kevin.
Right.
Go get him, Kevin. Neat.
Yeah.
Really neat. That's exciting. So we're not going to see gamers for another 6 months now. You're going to go back down in your hole.
Well, what do we got? We got about 2.5 weeks. 3 weeks almost.
Yeah. Cards of Duty, somebody said. House of Cards of Duty.
When does Call of Duty come out, though? Oh, the other thing is, Call of Duty, if you pre-order it digitally, you can play it the day before it comes out physically.
Right.
So you get 24 hours, like double experience points.
They want to push people towards digital, don't they? If I were GameStop, I'd be pissed.
I mean, yes. Obviously, the one problem with digital is if you don't like the game, you're kind of screwed. It's hard or impossible to sell.
But that's why they want to do it.
My God, like not having to put a disc in this thing.
I don't buy discs anymore. I realized, in fact, it was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
What was the last game? I bought a game. I can't remember what it was. Probably, I don't know. It was a disc. It was like not the first round of games, second round of games. And I realized I could download it. And even though I already had the disc coming, I bought the download.
You bought it, yeah, and just sent it back.
And that was the last disc I will ever buy.
The only disc that's ever been in my Xbox One was a Blu-ray movie, and I just put it in there to test Blu-ray movie playback.
I have Blu-ray movies, but I don't think I've ever put one in there.
No, I never actually watched Blu-rays. So it's important to me that I buy every version of the Star Wars movies that's ever been made. So I do have the Blu-ray version.
Yeah, but do you watch them?
No, I do not.
You just look at them on the shelf. Somebody's pointing out, actually, a very good point, that Frank Underwood in House of Cards unwinds, and there's several times this happens during the show.
He plays Call of Duty.
He plays Call of Duty.
That's right. That's true.
So that explains
Maybe that's why they reached out to him. For all we know, like there was an interview where he was like, "Well, this is what I do in real life, so I just threw it in the game, in the TV show, so it'd be easy."
He might be.
That's interesting. I never made that connection.
I've been meaning to get Kevin back on the show and interview him. This would be a good excuse. The release of Call of Duty.
Hopefully he does his his imitations.
Frank
in
Underwood.
as well.
The game of politics has always been.
He actually, speaking of Star Wars, he did the great SNL Star Wars thing where it was like Walter Matthau as Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know that thing?
Walter Matthau. There's no try.
What's a Wookiee?
He's a Wookiee.
What's a Chewbacca?
What's a Chewbacca?
It was just so awesome. He's just so great.
But it's clear Microsoft's pushing you towards digital content. You get 24 hours advanced play. I mean,
Microsoft does certain things around digital stuff. Office 365 is another version where it just becomes a no-brainer. You know, and obviously there will always be people who just refuse to do that kind of thing. I get
well,
that,
for various reasons, resale value. I don't have a fast enough internet connection, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Do you have to put the same amount of content on your hard drive if you have the disk? Yes, it still has to copy to your hard drive.
I don't know
disk
how it
just
works
becomes a
Xbox
key.
One. Xbox 360 was optional, so you could just play off the disc.
I don't think you can.
A little slower, remember?
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Xbox One.
I'm pretty sure it never gave me an option.
Okay. I mean, all I know is now I'm going to have to. Well, I've never used a disc. I have no idea how it works with a disc. Leo, if life goes right, I never will.
I'm telling you, it's the end of physical media. Nobody believes me, but it's true. Let's start off first by saying hello to Paul Thurrott, birthday boy. He is 48.
I think I'm officially at the point where I'm not necessarily celebrating this anymore.
Yeah. No, wait till you're 57.
Yeah.
60s. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Right.
Happy birthday, Paul. You're celebrating.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Yeah. And you know how Mary Jo celebrated? She went to Barcelona.
I toast you from Barcelona, Paul Thurrott.
I appreciate that.
We're not even with beer.
No, with water.
With water. Mary Jo Foley is at TechEd Barcelona and reporting there. It is a little bit later in the day there. I think it's 7:15 p.m.
It is.
Good to have you both. But it was fun just doing Call of Duty Weekly with Paul. But you know what? He did Enterprise. He did Codename.
I did.
And he even did.
It was very respectful.
Wow. He did all the things. Not as well as Mary Jo Foley.
No.
He attempted.
No one was claiming otherwise.
Chatham is at great pains to make sure that I let you know that they say happy birthday, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
It's nice. What are you doing? Anything for your birthday?
You. Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I am.
No.
Well, oddly enough, actually, Mary Jo will appreciate this. When we were out in D.C., Rodrigo
Yep.
just forgot her name, Gabriella, opened one of the shows, right? And I told my wife about this. I thought they were fantastic.
They were.
Downloaded a bunch of their music, yada, yada, yada. And I said, we should get, see if they ever come by Boston, buy tickets, And so we did. And actually that's tonight, which, now that it's happening tonight, it's like, oh God, I wish it wasn't tonight. But so we're going to go out for sushi before that and then go see those guys.
With Rodrigo?
No, I'm sorry.
No.
Stephanie and I are going to go out. My wife and I. Not with Rodrigo and Gabrielle. I mean, maybe they'll be there.
They could be there. Be nice. Kind of double date.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. I think you should do something. I know it is painful as you get older to celebrate. You don't want to celebrate.
Don't want to call attention to it.
No. I'm exactly the same way. And then I think it's actually how you were brought up. Mary Jo, in your family were birthdays a big deal?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were a big deal.
Yeah. So it's always a big deal for you. And if somebody doesn't do something for your birthday, it's like you're let down.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, Paul and I obviously come from flinty New England
by the way,
stock.
I'm not joking when I say this. I got up this morning in my usual, half-conscious state, walked downstairs, walked into the kitchen, and my family was exploded into this happy birthday thing. It's like, what are you doing? And I thought it was tomorrow.
See, so your family birthdays were not the big deal that they were in Mary Jo.
Well, they're a big deal for some people, I guess, but I just don't. I don't know. Whatever. You can't buy me a present for my birthday. I buy everything I want.
Exactly. What are you going to get us, geeks?
You're not going to surprise me with some
honey.
Hidden
I got
awesome
you an
thing
iPhone 5S. Oh, thank you.
I don't know.
Here's your Nokia 1520.
Yeah, I got one of those. Thanks.
That'll make two.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Get you a bow and arrow or something you don't have.
Right.
Daddy, we thought you should take up archery.
That's a good idea.
No,
all right, start
seriously.
running.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Give him a
I
sharp
bet you don't
weapon.
have your own beer growler. I bet they could have gotten
Oh, that would have been good.
What's that?
A beer growler.
an engraved beer growler.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We were doing a web redesign. We're using a great little company out of Austin called Fork Kitchens, and we were in their kitchen. It's 15 people, something like that, web designers. They have a keg in their kitchen. Not just a keg in their kitchen. They have a refrigerator with two beautiful taps and up to two different kegs, two different beers in their kitchen.
So the taps are like on the outside of the refrigerator.
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
Wow.
And they have software, some sort of Nexus 7 Android software that not only monitors the beer as it flows and tells you when you're out, it takes unflattering pictures of you as you're drinking.
Now I want to rescind my earlier statement.
That's
Actually,
what you want.
There is something you could get me that I haven't already bought myself.
What's that? This beer fridge?
The beer with the two kegs.
You should have a 2-keg beer fridge.
at least a 2-keg connection.
The funny thing is, they said sometimes we get 2 kegs of beer, but sometimes we get a keg of kombucha and a keg of beer.
Oh,
kombucha.
Nice.
See, Mary
I
Jo
love
likes
kombucha.
that.
I do love kombucha.
Yeah, see?
What is kombucha?
It's a fermented beverage that's very healthy, but it has a tiny bit of alcohol in it, maybe like under 1%.
You don't
and
like
it comes
it, Paul.
in fruit flavors.
Are you playing a vuvuzela over there, Leo? What is that?
Giants in the World Series!
Uh-oh.
Game 7! Sorry. So you're in Barcelona for Tech Ed, which on the one hand, people might say, well, that's a long way to go for Tech Ed. On the other hand, one of the great cities in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I always wanted to go to Tech Ed Europe, and so I did end up finally getting to come. And this is the rumored last Tech Ed Europe. They may be changing their format for doing this kind of an event going forward. So it's nice to get to come to my first and last Tech Ed at the same time in Europe.
Do they do it in English?
Big. They do it in English. Most of the speakers are from Redmond or partners of Microsoft who are from English-speaking countries.
Right.
But the delegates are from everywhere, the people who are at the show. It's very, very international.
Yeah.
You hear every language being spoken pretty much in the halls. So it's fun. It's fun to get to meet all these people who, they're Windows Weekly watchers too, but we don't always get to meet them at TechEd US because most of them wait and go to TechEd Europe instead. Yeah, so we're at the Barcelona, the Fira Europa, which is the big convention center here in Barcelona.
How many people do you think are there?
I think about somewhere just under 10,000, so fairly big.
Wow.
Yep.
And what have you learned? I mean, is it it's stuff you already know, or is there
Try
new
to condense everything you've learned down into about, I don't know, a minute and a half.
Yeah. Just about that much.
What do you think?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you how they kicked off the show, which is interesting. They had a keynote whose two main speakers were Joe Belfiore, who is on the Windows team, and the other speaker was Jason Zander, who is head of engineering for Azure. So that should tell you right there, there was Windows 10 talk at the show, and there was a lot of Azure talk at the show. Those were kind of the kickoff themes. They talked about some new services they were launching on Azure this week. They had a new batch service, so like batch processing, but in the cloud, that a lot of people were very interested in. It was funny. They were like trying to make batch processing really exciting with demos. It's kind of hard.
Were there any paper cards?
Kind of
Just to
no,
give
there
the
were
visual.
no paper punch cards. And they also talked a lot about Office 365, as you might expect. And they had some interesting announcements there around things they're doing to add some of the Windows, no longer called Windows Intune, just plain old Intune device management capabilities to Office 365 directly, which is pretty interesting. So the theme is a lot of stuff about the cloud, a lot of stuff about Office 365, and then some of the sessions here are digging into the stuff that IT pros really care about, which is the next version of Windows Server and the next version of System Center. There's a lot of talk about Hyper-V and all those meaty enterprise topics that IT pros love. So that's kind of the gist of what's going on this week here. How's that? A short,
Excellent. Nice
summary. Yep. Yeah, Windows 10 was interesting because, Joe Belfiore got up there. He admitted, most of what I'm going to tell you guys isn't brand new. If you've been following Windows 10, you've seen that we launched the first public preview. We had an update to that. But then he got up there and he demoed a couple of very minor things that were new, like the ability to snap apps side by side in multiple monitors, not just move the apps between the monitors, but actually snap them. He said that would be coming in an update at some point fairly soon. And he also said this at the end of the keynote, that Continuum, that new capability where if your keyboard's connected or disconnected, the operating system just knows and it acts appropriately. That will be available to people who are in the Insider program either by the end of this year or early next year. So earlier than a lot of people thought. And he talked about in-place upgrade, that Microsoft's really working to make it easy if you're on Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 8.1 to just upgrade in place to Windows 10 when it's done. And that you're not going to have to reinstall your apps, they think. Even your Win32 apps, your modern apps, that they'll just carry over. And that your settings and files, data, everything will carry over. That's their goal and what they think they can achieve by the time the operating system's done. So that's good. So we learned a few little things like that about Windows 10, but nothing startling or huge that those of us who are following it very closely didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you glad you went, though?
I am. I'm really glad I went. Not just because it's Barcelona, but that aside, it's good to come here and hear what some of the other contingencies care about and what people are interested in and not. It feels like a much more skeptical audience at TechEd Europe. They only applauded once during the keynote. You know what they applauded for?
What?
This is funny. Command prompt in Windows 10. That got like rousing applause. It did.
The presence of a command prompt in Windows 10?
They were showing those new capabilities that we saw, cut and paste inside the command prompt and all that. They really love that. That was a crowd pleaser.
We've got a really good terminal program this time around.
This has happened in the past. Remember when Microsoft did Server Core? The first time they shut off that, which is again just a command prompt interface, basically. The tech ed audience at the time, whatever year that was, exploded into applause. We'd like things to be difficult so normal people don't do them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
so,
right. Because then it's job security for the geeks.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, they tried to, they were trying to show the IT pro audience things that they thought they would really like. So they focus, on things like security, Azure single sign-on for Windows 10, all the things that they would be more attuned to than, just the pure start menu or something about tiles. So yeah, they were appealing to that kind of an audience. So they really focused on that.
Although, it's maybe notable because Tech Ed US was the same. No major on-prem server announcements at the show. I mean, I'm sure there were sessions or are sessions.
There are, yeah.
But, just as with Tech Ed in the US, Azure, Office 365. Interesting.
Yeah. I got to talk to Mike Neal, who's one of the main guys on Windows Server here. And we talked a little bit about what they're thinking around cadence for Windows Server. That was kind of interesting because, they're building the code base right alongside the Windows 10 client folks, but they're not going to update the Windows Server code base as fast, obviously, because who wants their server updated every few weeks or days? He told me that the next preview of Windows Server for people who are in the test program should be sometime early next year. So that's around when we think the consumer preview is going to come out. So that's actually very fast for Windows Server. Yeah. And he said, all the things that we've already heard about it, that a lot of new changes to Hyper-V, PowerShell, a lot of things around software-defined networking and all the goodness that those kind of folks would love. Things that'll make it cheaper to deploy server on commodity hardware. That's the big focus with this release. They're still not telling us the name of the next Windows Server. We're still calling it Windows Server Next.
Huh.
Yep.
That's a good name.
Let's hope that's not the name, but it won't be. Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of where they were at with everything. I'm trying to think if there was any other really big things. They announced some new services around Internet of Things on Azure, a data factory service for people who want to combine different data sources like SQL Server on-prem and NoSQL and be able to use those things in tandem and come up with business insights quicker. So all these things, not Call of Duty, not any of the fun stuff. But
however, I should point out, Paul did write an article that has his whole list of tech ed announcements. So if you want, just all the...
And the important part of that article is that I have my own photo of Barcelona at the top of it.
That's his photo, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice work.
Very good.
Yeah.
So
one thing I forgot. Office 16. We found out what the release target dates are. That was actually kind of a big deal. That's the next version of Windows Client Office and also Office for the desktop. I'm sorry, also Office servers. We found out that's going to be in the second half of 2015, which is slightly later than we thought it was going to be coming. Although I'm betting like early second half, maybe even June or July. But that's the official word now, is Office 16 is around that time.
June or July?
My guess, June or July. They're saying second half of calendar 2015.
Right.
Yep.
This next one is so small, there's not much to talk about. Windows 10.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay, thank you very much. No.
Oh, boy.
The most audacious release in the history of a platform, says some guy named Thurrott.
Says perennial Microsoft cheerleader Paul Thurrott. So,
okay.
Why would I say such a thing?
Why would you say such a thing?
Because I've been around a while, Leo.
You've seen it all, my friend. You've seen it all.
I mean, I kind of have seen it all. And people will always point to things. Windows 95 is an obvious one. Windows NT, huge one. Windows XP, where they combine consumer and business into one platform. Very big things. And then, of course, there'll be the people that point at Longhorn, which never happened, which is, I would say, the shuttle disaster of Windows or whatever. It was the worst thing that ever happened. The reason that Windows 10 is such a big deal is literally because of this thing they've been saying all along, where I've been kind of shaking my head saying this isn't a big deal, but it actually really is. It's that they're bringing together essentially a single platform across such a wide range of devices. Imagine if Longhorn had really happened. If Microsoft actually took that PowerPoint presentation that was complete baloney and turned it into an actual living, breathing, working operating system, compared to what they're doing in Windows 10, that would have been nothing, because that operating system only targeted old-fashioned traditional computers. The potential exposure to customers and device types was fairly minimal by the standards of today. Windows 10 targets everything from Internet of Things, like little sensor-type devices, little nanobot type things, through all the small screen devices, phones and phablets and small tablets and big tablets and 2-in-1s and laptops and ultrabooks and blah, 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 all the way up to, PPI type things. It's really, it's like the full stack. And their universal apps thing it's not complete baloney. I get that it's, a step down a road toward a developer being able to target all of these things in one whack. But we don't know the full story there yet. And what I'm being told is that this is, in fact, a much bigger jump in that direction than maybe we've been led to believe. This is clearly the biggest deal in the history of Windows. Clearly.
Wow.
And you can't, it's really not even a debate.
Wow, I was right. You agree, Mary Jo?
I'm not as convinced. I don't think.
I said it's not even a debate.
It's not even. It's true.
Mary Jo, it's like you're not paying attention.
I'm tweeting it right now. It's got to be true.
No, the part I think, when I think about Windows 10 that I think is really big is the change, well, two changes. The change in the way Microsoft's doing the rollout itself and releasing to customers these incremental updates on a regular basis, and they're going to let people test different features at the same time through flighting. I think that's really a big deal, and the part that we don't know a whole lot about yet. And then the fact that they actually are taking user feedback into account in what seems to be a real way. Now, so far, we haven't seen them change any features of Windows 10 because of the user feedback.
That's true.
But I think if and when they do, that will be a big deal. And also the fact that they're even in the forums talking to people instead of just writing 3,000-word blog posts and saying, hey, this is the way it is. That's a big deal.
This isn't just like a different team of people or a different company. It's like a different species, But by the way, I think the important point, though, is a lot of, I write this thing and a lot of people are like, oh, Paul, put down the pom-poms, But it's not, no, it's not about like, oh, they put a start menu back and you're doing like a dance, like a touchdown dance in the backyard. No, it's not about like a desktop, laptop version of Windows. Like this is, on that note, Windows 10 is just another version of Windows. I mean, it's, any version of Windows is a big deal. But my point is that it goes out, Microsoft has to address the market for these other things, and so you have Windows Phone, which was not Windows, not really, not the first version. It's like this other thing, If they can make these things all one thing, if you will, one platform, addressable by developers and in a simple fashion, that is in fact a really big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah. No, it is. And they are going to get quite a ways along that path with Windows 10. Like the Common App Store, we weren't sure that was going to make it into Windows 10, but they actually are going to have one app store by the time this thing is out. Windows Phone, Windows, and probably Xbox too will all have a common store by the time Windows 10 comes out. That is a bigger deal than a lot of people give credit for. And we also do believe that they're going to let developers put Win32 apps in the store and not just links to the apps, but the actual apps.
That is happening. Yeah.
It is for sure.
Yep.
We knew it in that blog post that got pulled, but we haven't seen that yet, right? I mean, because we haven't seen the new store yet. Yep. So I think it's the goal and hopefully the plan. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff that they're doing very differently under the covers, kind of not the stuff that's so much UI specific, but all those things like allowing people to log in through Azure Active Directory instead of having a Microsoft account. They confirmed this week, by the way, at TechEd that is in fact happening. And those kind of things make a big difference to a lot of folks who didn't really want to go the Microsoft account route or wanted to do something through Azure Active Directory in a more centralized, single sign-on fashion. So, yeah, there's a lot of goodness under the covers.
It's fairly amazing, and I think the reason, to use the word audacious, is because it's a moonshot. Taking Windows 8 and fixing it is great and the right thing to do, and it's customer centric and it's all that wonderful stuff. But it's this other stuff in the background that under the covers, the sort of broad support for all these different platforms is what makes it, so much bigger than that, and such a big deal. And, I write about this stuff for a living, so I'm going to write an article about a start menu. I'm sorry. I just, this is part of my life. It just is. But I think there are more profound things going on here than, the command line just got cut and paste with Control V. Like, that's neat. That's fun. It's a single little thing. But
I can't believe it didn't have it, frankly.
This is big thing happening. That's a much bigger deal.
We get distracted by the UI stuff. Now,
it's easy.
A couple of questions I have for you. This big thing, primarily of interest to enterprise, though, right?
Well, no, I mean,
I have
not necessarily.
So the Microsoft stuff I use is Xbox, and then Office, and I guess OneDrive is going to be a bigger part of my life, but I don't use Windows really. Is this for me too?
Yeah, I mean, the point is that Windows is underlying all of the platform work that Microsoft is doing. So even you as an Xbox user will be running Windows 10. You'll be running a Metro, I'm not going to call it Metro, but a Metro type, Metro 2.0, whatever you want to call it, type user experience. That OneDrive stuff, better integration into Xbox One would be wonderful, wouldn't it? So now that you've put up all your photos and videos and whatever, you can access that stuff from your Xbox One. I mean, these underlying platform changes will benefit everybody. I mean, they ultimately benefit people that aren't even using Windows because they'll appear in Microsoft's mobile apps and services on other platforms as well. But as far as the who benefits from this one Windows thing, obviously enterprise, yes, but also developers. You give them a much larger target audience with one, trajectory. In other words, they're not just. It's not. We have Xbox over here. Please write for Xbox. We have Windows over here. Please write for Windows. We have Windows Server over here. Please do that too. We've got this crazy Windows for the Internet of Things that we haven't really named yet. And please do target that as well. Well, how about target all of it at once? That's when the developers say, "Oh, okay, yes, now that makes sense." So I think this is the big not the biggest tragedy maybe, but maybe the biggest tragedy of Longhorn is that's when Microsoft lost developers. That's when it all happened. And that was the whole chicken egg problem right there. They kept changing it and changing it and changing it. And by the time it came out, it was too late and they had moved on. And no one was listening anymore. And this is a chance to kind of get them back with a vision that I think actually makes sense and isn't just arbitrary. Whereas, Windows 8 was kind of arbitrary. Look, it looks like managed code. It's not, but don't worry about it. What? Right. It was kind of and that doesn't go away, unfortunately. But I mean, a single developer environment, a single target, I don't want to call it a single SDK, but a single set of SDKs, a common platform is, I think, a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah.
I think this is the kind of thing Microsoft needed to do and it must do to survive or at least continue going forward and succeed. I think it's the right direction. How did this happen?
That's right. Well,
who had can we say Satya Nadella, or is this a Steve Ballmer? I mean, obviously, must have begun years ago, right?
So actually, by the way, I don't know, Mary Jo, did you watch the Charlie Rose interview with Steve Ballmer?
No,
did you see
I
this?
just read excerpts from it.
Yeah, it was very interesting. There were not a lot of apologies there. He does agree that Longhorn distracted them, but that there was not much that they could have done about that, and that they lost out on mobile as a result. By the way, another fallout from Longhorn.
He was there in the Longhorn era. What was he doing?
He was the CEO. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Ballmer.
But what he blamed it on, by the way, was
sorry, I'm thinking
Bill Gates
was Ballmer. Yeah.
Bill Gates had been #1 and Steve Ballmer had been #2 for the previous 20 years or whatever. They switched jobs essentially. They didn't switch jobs, but they switched positions. So Ballmer became CEO, and then Bill Gates was essentially, reporting to him. This didn't go over very well. They lost a couple of years to this. They argued all the time, and that's when Longhorn happened. And he said, it's not exactly why Longhorn. It's not like the why, but it's a big part of how that kind of thing happened.
Ballmer said this that we argued all the time.
Yep. It was
Wow, I've got to watch this.
You have to watch this.
Yeah.
And so, basically not to give any excuses for it, but this is what happened when they were both just too distracted. And obviously those things calmed down and they moved on and they fixed long run eventually or whatever. But, the damage had been done.
Who can forget the week that Mary Jo spent in Sweden? I forgot all about it already, but fortunately we have a recording to show she was actually there.
Windows 10 tech preview and user feedback. Tell me all about that. Who wants to take
where
that
to
one?
dig in? Where to dig in on?
I just want to say this is Mary Jo Foley's fault.
Why is
It
that?
is.
She started this all last week, the complaining. And now...
Wait, I did?
Well,
In
you
fact,
were
I think I'm the only person who wasn't complaining about what they did.
What did they do?
Yeah,
What happened?
All right, let Paul talk about OneDrive because this is,
Yeah.
there's a
This
new
is a
version
tough one.
of the Windows 10 tech preview out as of last week, and they've made some changes that some of the more power user type people are not that happy about. And I'm going to let Paul weigh in on that, and then I'm going to weigh in.
Okay. Not that happy about it's an understatement. So
I know.
Remember,
there
can
are
I just say, remember, this is a tech preview.
Yep.
This is not a
You can't.
released version of Windows by any
know
means.
that. We know. Yeah, but see, that's actually the problem. So, in other words, the first two preview builds of Windows 10 have been very high quality, very stable, very recommendable, to even normal people. They work very well. And this third one, okay, so it's kind of a regression from a stability standpoint. But they quietly, and by quietly I mean there was no warning that this was coming, but they introduced a major change to OneDrive. And so if you were coming at Windows 10 from a Windows 8.1 perspective, the first couple of builds of Windows 10 worked just like Windows 8.1 did, and then the third one suddenly did not. So the outrage is not that they've made that change, although that would certainly generate a certain amount of grumbling. It's that they basically explained themselves and said, yeah, we're not fixing this. This is the way it's going to work going forward. There'll be improvements to it, but it's never going back to the way it was. So that's the problem. It's not that it's a beta build and we're overreacting. It's that Microsoft is fundamentally changing the way that OneDrive works in Windows and not for the better. And so we could go really far into the weeds, but the short version that I'll try to make is that when you think about OneDrive sync clients, you're basically talking about three different operating systems, Mac OS 10, Windows 7, and Windows 8.1. Mac OS 10 and Windows 7 work the same way. You sign into OneDrive. It says, do you want to sync all of your OneDrive to the PC, or do you want to pick which folders to sync? Obviously, in these days of 1 terabyte, 10 terabyte, eventually unlimited storage, some people, power users who are actually uploading stuff to OneDrive, like I am, are going to have to select the folders to sync. So the problem with that approach is that if you have 3 folders in OneDrive and they all have different things in them, and I'm trying to simplify this, but you try to just sync one from File Explorer in Windows or from the Finder in Mac OS 10, you'll only see that folder. You'll have no access to the other locations. In Windows 8.1, they had a more elegant and also more complex system for some people where they didn't ask you what you wanted to sync. What they did was you logged in with your Microsoft account to the computer. It automatically synced placeholders for everything. And so it looked like everything was there. But what you were really seeing were little thumbnails and metadata files for the files that are really up in the cloud. And so if you double-clicked on one, it would open. It would have to download. So if it was a huge file, it might take a long time to open. Or you could arbitrarily mark files and folders for offline use. The problem with this system, and I think this is an issue that Mary Jo has experienced, is that because those things appear in the file system, you think they're there. And so maybe you get on a plane or you're in some other offline situation. You double-click on that Word document. It's not there. It's in the cloud, and you can't get to it because now you're offline. And so people complain. But the other issue here, and this is, I think, the important one, is that placeholder files aren't free, right? So if you have a terabyte of files, depending on the makeup of those files, in the cloud that is, The amount of space that those placeholders could take up on your drive could be tens of gigabytes. If you have 2 terabytes, 3 terabytes, 10 terabytes, it's going to be, even more. And so we have this weird situation where Microsoft, on the one hand, is offering unlimited storage in OneDrive to everyone who pays for Office 365. And on the other hand, they're selling really low-end devices, or their partners are, that have 16 gigs of storage, 32 gigs of storage, right? And it's conceivable that you, as the happy and proud owner of a new HP Stream 7 laptop tablet that has, I can't remember what it has, 32 or 16 gigs of storage, you log into your account, you play with it for a little while, you load a couple of games on there, and you go to bed. The next time you turn it on, it says, burp, you have run out of space. Because while you weren't using it, it was downloading all the placeholders. It's not downloading the files, just the placeholders. And it filled up all the space in your drive. And so that's the problem, or those are the problems. So the placeholders take up space. That's going to be a problem in low-end devices, which are going to be the popular devices. And then normal people didn't realize that the placeholder files weren't the files.
Yep. I'm the normal person who they built this feature for. I was telling Paul, when everybody was flipping out when we found out that that's the change they made to OneDrive, I'm one of those people who I got on a plane. I didn't realize the file was in the cloud. I tried to use it. I wasn't online. And no, it looked like it was there, but it wasn't there.
So you got bit.
I got bit. And I'm not the only one. I always say this and you guys laugh, but I'm the normal user in this case. I know, as normal as.
No, we recognize you as the normal one. Believe me. we make no bones about that.
Right. And so I actually am kind of happy they're doing this change. And I'm also not someone who has a ton of OneDrive files either. But the ones I have are a lot of them are documents that I want to work on when I'm disconnected, and I'm always left kind of scratching my head like, is that on my PC or isn't that on my PC? And I understand there are ways they could make that more visible and apparent by, with shading or some kind of a visual cue. But I know also that Microsoft seems to be trying to make the way they support different services common across all of their platforms so that they can update the files for iOS at the same time as they do for Android, at the same time they do for Windows 7 and Windows 8 and Windows 10. So I understand why they're doing this, and I understand.
And for OneDrive for Business, right?
And OneDrive for Business,
if you really want to go into the weeds on this, and we could easily spend 2 hours on this. Remember that Microsoft has these 2 different services that are completely. I know, I'll try not to, but OneDrive for Business and OneDrive are completely different. They're not always going to be. They're working to integrate them into a single engine that works between both, that they work consistently, look consistently. Mobile app form will be one app that does both. If you use OneDrive for Business today on Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, whatever, I don't think it's on the Mac yet still. It's even dumber in the sense that if you choose to sync that to your PC, it's all or nothing for today. Right. And so in other words, right now, I think you can only have, it must be a terabyte, probably OneDrive for Business today because they haven't upgraded it yet. If you had a terabyte of files in there for some reason, if you sync that thing on your PC, it's going to download a terabyte of files, and if you don't have a terabyte of space, it's not going to work. So they're trying to serve a lot of masters in a way. And unfortunately, it's going to be the power user types like me who get burned by this.
Let us get back to Sweden. Mary Jo Foley is there for the big Tech Days, Shaping the Future. I think it's techdays.se is the website. And there she is. She's shaping
the future.
Beautifully done.
She's like a mime.
The future. It's in whiteface.
Yes. So we have some people who want to ask questions. So I'm going to get the question, and I'll just read them to you guys and tell you what they want to know.
Perfect.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay, so my question is, how important is the Surface as a device that Microsoft sells compared to what kind of infuser it is for the rest of the industry, for other companies to create tablet-like devices?
So how important is it to Microsoft?
How important is the Surface?
Or to the industry?
Is it more important as a device that Microsoft sells and earns money from compared to...
Oh, I see what you're asking.
Yeah,
okay.
We can kind of hear it, actually. We kind of heard it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because he wants to know,
is the Surface more important as a device, like a money-making device for Microsoft, or is it more like an inspiration and like an innovation, right?
Yeah.
Am I explaining that well?
Well, it is close to a negative billion-dollar business, so I think that's important.
Right. I mean, Microsoft, we believe, has been losing money with the Surface, but we don't know that for sure because they aren't saying how many Surfaces they've sold. We know they took a write-down of $900 million on the Surface RT. The one
that was like a year and a half ago. I mean,
it was a year and a half ago, right?
Well, but you're digging yourself out of $1 billion hole.
You are. You're digging yourself out of a hole. But are they going to keep making Surfaces? Do they think it's important enough to the company going forward to have like an inspirational device, something that really showcases Windows? Yep. Good question, right? I mean, Nadella hasn't been that bullish about hardware, right?
Oh, I thought he had explicitly addressed this. No, did I?
He did, but I feel like the fact they haven't rolled out any more Surfaces since the Surface Pro 3 may indicate something. I don't know. They
killed the Surface Micro.
Killed the Surface Mini. Or at least postponed it.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm a little.
We've been asking that question since the day they came out with it.
Yeah. I know we have.
But it was a significant risk.
Now.
For Microsoft to go into the PC business. They'd never done that before against their OEMs, competing with their OEMs.
That worked out great. I don't think anyone got upset with them or anything. So,
well,
no worries
but you know
there.
what? You're being facetious, obviously. But, here we are a couple of years later. It's not like they've lost a lot. I mean, people are still making PCs.
Well, actually, Leo, so by the way, seriously on that topic, here we are 2 years later, and Microsoft had to release $0 Windows licensing to counteract the Chromebooks that every single one of their partners has released since they made Surface. Yeah. So actually, I think we could credit Surface with $0 Windows licensing ultimately. I mean, it's kind of an obvious cause and effect type thing right there.
Okay, let's take another question.
Favorite total new feature in the Windows 10 preview?
Okay. Okay. Favorite feature? Yeah. Okay. Favorite feature so far in the Windows 10 preview? That hasn't been in any other Windows version. Favorite feature in Windows 10 preview that hasn't been in any other Windows version? Paul Thurrott.
I mean, I wouldn't call this a favorite one because my favorite features in Windows were in other Windows versions. But, in the newest build, one of the new features they just released that I think is going to be a big deal, not so much for me, but, for typical users, which is going to be most people, is that Snap Assist feature, which is now enabled. And so when you snap a window, it works, which it didn't in the previous build. And then it throws up thumbnails on the other side of the screen. So you can pick which other application you might want, or you can just hit escape and it goes away. And you go back to your normal view. And then you can automatically snap two things side by side. So, Windows 8, you may recall when you snap something, you got a blank screen. And it wasn't really clear what you had to do. You had to go to Start, choose another app, and then it would snap after you did that. And so I think that kind of thing, it's not a major new feature, but it's one of those things that will impact everybody that uses it. So kind of a big deal.
I don't know if you remember, when you were away one time and Dr. Pizza was on the show, Peter Bright from Ars Technica, I said on the show, I think Snap on Windows 8 is so broken and so terrible, and he just flipped out. He completely flipped out.
Yeah, and it's probably the thing I was talking about.
I know. I'm like, it's so hard to use. It's really hard to figure out how to snap in an easy way. I mean, I know how to make the gestures to snap, but it's like you have to think about it too much. And Snap Assist really does take that away. It takes away that part where you have to go, wait, how do I do this again?
What the heck am I doing? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Now, I haven't used it yet, but the one feature that draws my eye is, I don't know what they call it, the workspaces, multiple workspaces.
Yeah, multiple desktops, yep.
I use that. I've used that for years in Linux. I use it in OS 10. I find that a really nice way, a little bit better than snapping, a really nice way to, especially with full screen apps. It kind of goes hand in hand with full screen apps to have multiple full screen apps open. I haven't used it. I don't know how well it's implemented, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yep. What else, audience?
What about you, Mary Jo?
Yeah. Did she say a favorite? Did she?
A favorite?
She likes to snap.
I'm not running Tech Preview because I don't have a PC to put it on, and hearing how things are
becoming very unstable. I just don't have the time or.
Well, Mary Jo, let me walk you through this setup of a dual boot system while we sit here and you're in Sweden. So first,
I don't want to do this. Yeah, let me set that up right now. No, I don't. You know what? I know.
No, you can do this.
Here. I know my place here. My place is not to be a tester for the tech preview.
Sure.
I'll be a tester on the consumer preview because I'm a consumer.
Were you ever you used a Surface Pro 3? Were you ever tempted to buy one?
I didn't really care for it that much.
Even with the lappability?
It wasn't lappable.
Okay.
No. I tried to balance it on my lap. It kept falling off. Maybe I have short legs. Maybe, I don't know what. I don't know how to explain it. But I much prefer the clamshell laptop form factor still to the Surface. I just find the Surface a little too tippy and not lappable enough because I type on my lap a lot. And that's unusual, I know, but that's what I do.
You actually have a really good Windows laptop.
I have
Same
a really
as I
good
use,
Windows
the Acer S7. And it's just great.
Acer S7 is great. Yep. So yeah, I don't have a favorite, except I like the idea of Snap Assist a lot because I always thought snapping was too hard.
Another question from Sweden. Yeah.
Another question? Anything. Can be anything.
When does the beer start?
When does the beer start?
Yeah, exactly. You're keeping me from beer.
Guys, anything?
No, they don't have to ask if they're shy.
I think they're just tired. It's been a long day here.
A long day. Here, let's just take a look at the fabulous audience one more time in beautiful Stockholm. They're celebrating a joyous day at the Microsoft Tech Day event. All right. Let's get to the back of the book. You ready to do that, guys?
Let's do it.
And thanks to everybody in Sweden, especially thanks to the fella who set this up because you just really look great. I think the tech worked great. All round.
Yeah. Michael Ardenberg.
Michael Ardenberg. Thank you.
Is he there?
Yes,
bring
he is
him on
here.
in. Let him say hi.
Michael Ardenberg, come on down. There he is. I think we exchanged emails, right, Michael?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
nice to talk to you finally.
Nice to talk to you. Nice job. You did a great job setting this up. I can't believe how good it looks. 10 times better than Paul.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was our goal.
Actually, I was going to ask Paul if he would like to come over here himself sometime and visit.
Yeah,
we have the world's largest LAN party here twice a year.
Oh, what game do you play?
Really?
Well, they play everything. It's 16,000 people coming together twice a year and playing games for 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I could do that.
Wow.
I do it with a slightly smaller crowd up the street. It's more like 6 or 10 guys, but yeah, sure.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your help.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, that's that for this edition of Windows Weekly, the best of 2014. I'm out of cocoa and we're out of clips. There was quite a few of them, but what a great show, huh? And don't you really appreciate the work Paul and Mary Jo do to keep us up to date on what's going on at Microsoft, and maybe even more importantly, to explain what it all means. We've got a lot more for 2015, one of our most successful, longest running shows. It just keeps getting better, and we are really glad you continue to watch. I hope you'll tune in. Windows Weeklies every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. 1900 UTC. I do the math in my head, 1900 UTC every Wednesday. Please watch live if you can. Otherwise, get on-demand versions. They're available everywhere that you get your podcasts, including our own website, twit.tv/WW. You can, wow, that was cool. You can also use our Twit apps to listen to any of our shows live or on demand after the fact. Thanks for joining us in 2014. Here's to a happy, healthy, and full of cocoa 2015. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.